Today's show is sponsored by Virtual Shield. Virtual Shield can be used to shield your browsing activity from prying eyes, whether on a public Wi-Fi connection, foreign country, or just at home. The world-famous delivery app DoorDash has announced that its security has been breached. Hackers have unloaded data on 4.9 million of its users. It seems like every other day another powerful app has been compromised. One of the best things you can do to help protect yourself online is sign up for a free 30-day trial of Virtual Shield VPN. This will allow you to create a secure connection to another network over the internet. All you have to do is click the link below, download the free 30-day trial. Once you install it, you just click connect, and you'll be connected to a different virtual private network. This month, Virtual Shield is offering a Halloween month-long special of 25% off all VPN plans and all premium add-ons, including Protection Plus, Residential Access, and VIP Performance plans for as low as a cup of coffee. Sign up for a free 30-day trial to Virtual Shield VPN and see what the hype is all about. You have nothing to lose.
All right, and that, let me see, that should be the end of the ad, the sponsorship. Did you guys see that? And can you hear me? And Jeff, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Okay, cool. Hey, do you hear an echo? I actually had to unplug my headphones. I needed to play the audio from that sponsorship. Did you guys hear that?
Not an echo right now. Maybe just for a little bit there, for a second or two. You know,
cool.
Some comes in, comes out, sort of thing. I'll let you know though if I hear anything. I'm on headphones, so
I just put in some headphones as well, and so good. We're live, and by the way, guys, that's I'm KJ. Welcome to the show, and that's Jeff C as well. And I've been wanting to talk about this subject here for quite a while, especially watching a lot of what Jeff's been putting out there. You might be new around here, wondering what this is all about. I think the title says it all. You know, the battle of the sexes is over. Everyone lost. And I actually made a video about 5 or 6 years ago with that exact same title that was about a lot of the things we're going to talk about today, because we've seen it coming for a while. And you guys can go back and look. It's one of those videos where there's a lot of different clips. And it just shows, even back then, I think it had some videos of young people, young boys, again, trying to turn over into girls or trying to transition. And that was even 5 or 6 years ago. And that was like NBC, CBS, but they were peppering us with it. You know, they were slowly imprinting us with accepting these kind of ideas back then. So it's been around for a while. And now there really is an inversion of the sexes. And everything really has been turned upside down in so many ways. So, Jeff C is a good friend of mine. We go back many years, have had some great shows together. We've even had some great recent shows together. And it's always good to have him back. I really appreciate his take on things. I think you're going to appreciate it too if you haven't heard anything from Jeff. So buckle up. Thanks for being here, and thanks for the moderators as well. So Jeff, I know that's a long intro, but how you doing?
Oh, it's great. I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
I'm good, man. It's great to have you here. Well, actually, first off, too, I wanted to throw this out there. You're in trouble right now on one of your channels? Am I right, or what's going on there?
Yeah, I'm always so like you know, people probably know that my main channel is called Jeff Censored for good reason. So I was hit recently, and it does actually touch on this topic because it was a Trisha Paytas video in which Trisha Paytas was coming out and declaring herself to be a transgender, female to male, you know, all different things at once sort of thing. And I tried to do my diplomatic best, you know, and really, you know, rip into what she is involved in and who she's connected to and how they are, you know, they're setting the table and conditioning the youth using these characters. And YouTube came and hit me for community guideline strike, which for harassment and bullying. So just because I got that strike, I moved operations over to Supreme Lord Commander in order not to lose that channel. So that's where I'm putting up most of my work. And Supreme Lord Commander was a channel I created back in 2015, which was purely for analyzing the entertainment and gaming and music sort of realm of the NWO. So that's where I'm doing most of my operations. It's nothing new. I mean, it's something that I've had to deal with many times. And yeah, those are the bumps in the road that you have to deal with when you're trying to expose, some of what they're up to, sort of thing. So you just got to roll with the punches.
Yeah, man, I know. I mean, I mean, seriously though, you've lost, so many channels. I mean, some people out there might not be familiar with you. Again, you've been around for years and
Mhm.
have had a lot of channels. And Free Radio Revolution was that was definitely the most successful, and it was really becoming super popular there that last year and a half or so. You were growing really quick.
Yeah, they snuffed that pretty quickly. But I take it all in stride because I feel when you're over the truth, that's when you're gonna feel the heat, sort of thing.
Right.
So I just the way I look at it, I have changed a lot of my approach. So like doing the show, like it's funny. I'll throw you this little story because I sent one of my podcasts to my mother the other day. This was one dealing with food. And she actually listened to the whole thing and she said it was amazing. And she was so grateful that I was not using any profanity.
Yeah.
So sometimes, it works out okay. So, I've just, yeah, I've lost a whole bunch of channels, but I just keep going. And I think that, if people really like your stuff and they find that you're putting out good value, they're going to try to stick with you and, stay with you as you get the censorship sort of thing. So.
For sure, absolutely, man. So, and I'm glad you keep coming back. So, you've been attacking a lot of the subjects I'm interested in as well, especially all the things happening just in society in general right now between the sexes.
Yeah.
And what are let me take a look here. I know I pulled a few things aside here. We were just talking about the patriarchy. In fact, just before we started the show, you and I were talking for a little bit. And I'd mentioned that I'd seen this study about, with the so-called rise of the incels.
Mm.
They say what's happening is that right now it's mainly, the younger men are staying at home and living with their parents, and they're not really growing up and staying there till 30, 40 years old, sometimes later. And a lot of the young ladies, they're the only ones who are out there trying to get the actual degrees, or at least those I don't know, maybe they're coursed that way or put that way. And it seems like the men aren't, so much in that as much. Anyway, without rambling on too much, they said within about 10 years or so, they really could see a switching over, patriarchy, matriarchy kind of a thing, where women are going to be in control. In fact, they're already in control of military and industrial complex, right? So
Yeah. I think it's all it's been in motion for several decades, many decades, you could say. And it a lot of the women's rights movements have originated from United Nations and the New World Order itself. And again, I want to just put this out before I get into anything. I couldn't be more in favor of women. I think women are the greatest thing ever, sort of thing, right? So I'm not here to take shots at women. And, in some parts of the world, women are being oppressed, but is it really our business to go into these countries? Well, it is if we're a one world, of course. But they are programming women basically, like the main purpose, in my estimation, of what is going on is if this is all about depopulation, and that you want to deconstruct the family nucleus, which is the model of the American lifestyle, right? The mother, the father, the idea of, and this is what you get into when you talk about the incels, right? Like men now staying at home, prolonged, just because they don't see any real way out of the situation, in the sense that, back in the 1950s, say in the Eisenhower era, when suburbia was blooming and the American roads were all being built, the infrastructure was being designed, the average American could get out of high school and, get a job. I'm talking a male, right? Of course, get a job for a corporation or something, right? And buy a home and a car and have that pretty much paid off within no time. And that is a completely different world now. And all by design, because if you want to stop people from breeding, make it expensive is one of the ways to do it. Another way, of course, is to reverse the sexes, which again, that all kind of bleeds into the transhumanists and the future type of humans, the CRISPR babies and all that they're trying to develop and will be our replacements, sort of thing. But I think the main purpose of this whole feminist movement really is the deconstruction of the family and turning women against traditional female roles. So one thing that's very important for all women to understand, if you identify as a feminist sort of thing, right, is that the natural order is a balance between men and women. And that the reason why women have traditionally, I mean, I don't, I feel kind of silly having to explain this, but yet you see the indoctrination of most of the younger women today. They need to understand this, is that, prior to the Industrial Revolution or prior to the 21st century, it was almost impossible for a woman to be in the workforce and have children and raise a family at the same time. So a woman had a tremendous job to do, giving birth, raising babies, raising children, taking care of the home, right? Teaching the children sort of thing. I mean, it's one of the most difficult jobs for any human being, period, and is the most important job there is, in my opinion. So we have to understand why it's been more or less what they would deem a patriarchy. It's not because men are evil and men have conspired to keep women out of the picture. It's because, we didn't have microwaves. We didn't have, frozen TV dinners and electric ovens and toasters and all these things. We didn't have massive hospitals. We didn't have social insurance, all these different things in the past. And so therefore, it only makes sense that women would stay at home and raise the family and cook the meals and clean the clothes and do all the hard work that had to be done, and that the male would go off and work, either tilling the fields or, working in the mill or working in the corporation, right? So, it's a natural thing. It's not an evil thing that we got here. This is not to excuse that, say, women have had forms of oppression against them. Like you could say, for instance, women only were able to get the vote back in, the 1920s, sort of with the suffragette movement, right? And I agree with that. I fully believe that women can do most things that men can do. A lot of things they can do better, right? Some things they can't do as well, obviously physical things, right? But the whole thing that what the New World Order is trying to do is they want to depopulate. The cultural Marxist sort of programming of the masses works to deconstruct the family. If you can program all these new generations of women that are coming up into a victim status, right, that they've been oppressed, and that they're always unequal and they always have to fight for more, and then you take them out of the mindset of raising children, having families, staying at home, being a traditional sort of female within the human society. And you reconstruct their brains into thinking they have to be the victors. They have to be the ones that, are working in the glass towers, that they have to put their career first and foremost ahead of everything. And this is what they're doing to women. They are programming women into being, and then they're doing the exact same, the opposite to men, where they're programming men into being women. And we saw that. I think you probably saw recently the GQ magazine with the African-American sort of model guy with the quilt dress that he had on.
Yeah.
And he said, this is the new masculinity.
The new man. Yeah, crying. And which, again, crying, that in context, sure, I understand crying. I've cried before. It happens, but not to be overly emotionally. That's what they're pushing. Again, it's just the inversion of the sexes. They just had a story that came out, and this went pretty wide in a lot of different, I saw it mainstream, I guess you could say, Daily Mail to NBC, but I don't know where it originated, but the idea is too much exercise can kill you if you're a white man. Do you remember that story?
No, I don't.
Well, here's just a little taste. So it says too much exercise can kill you, especially if you're a white man. Study finds 7.5 hours a week of fitness doubles your risk of heart disease. Well, it's only targeted at white men, That's why I always question this kind of stuff. Obviously, we see what they're trying to do here, but so this one kind of surprised me. I'll read a little bit here. It says, white men who work out at least 7.5 hours a week are nearly twice as likely to suffer from heart disease than those who do a moderate amount, a new study shows. It says this was not the case with black men based on 3,175 participants. So again, more of that kind of, now the turning is what is it? Tribalism. You know, they put us into little camps, right? And then they do stuff like this, try to fuel the fires and, turn us against each other.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's always a divide and conquer at every level. And the cultural Marxist sort of mindset is the best method for this. And this is what you see everywhere, especially out of academia. Academia is cultural Marxism programming by and large. Like most of the academic institutions have long been overtaken with the Frankfurt sort of Institute programming that came out of the Weimar Republic, right, in the 1930s in Germany. Now, I'll talk about people that are largely behind that sort of thing, but this is a toxic sort of weapon that is used to deconstruct traditional society. So traditional, as we say, the American dream, right? With the American dream, how would you define it? I mean, for me, it would be like a man and a woman coming together, buying a home and raising a family and living their dreams sort of thing, living the lifestyle that they, would dream of sort of thing. And that would, go back to the 1950s, as I mentioned before, the sort of ideal where you could have that type of lifestyle. Hollywood has worked extremely hard to deconstruct that and to eradicate that sort of concept in the minds of men and women. So men at the same time are being programmed into, of course, being females, right? Being extremely weak, as you're saying, right? Like with these studies coming out saying, oh, white men, for instance, white men are always it's open season, right? I think everybody knows that open season is white people, white heterosexual males are fair game for any sort of criticism, any sort of really, if you want to say blatant racism, because if you're going to apply racism evenly, then what is being done like in the media and the Disney media, the depictions and the attacks on white heterosexuals, especially white Christian heterosexuals, are blatantly racist and very evil in my point of view, sort of thing. But yeah, this is a whole deconstruction of the family. The family nucleus is being like the whole, like when we think about it too, all the things you think about how women are being programmed. Look at the women's marches, Me Too, Time's Up, right? Where you get these actors that go up on stage like Ashley Judd that come from, very wealthy families. I mean, they're born with a silver spoon up there, what sort of thing, right? And yet they get up on stage and they do these massive rants about having to pay taxes on tampons, right? And we've always been oppressed. We've always been oppressed. So Planned Parenthood, right? You think about it, it's an inverse, really. What is Planned Parenthood? Well, it's actually the opposite of planning your parenthood. It's not planning your parenthood. It's women taking the roles of men, working in glass towers, putting careers first and getting abortions, right? A perfect example, of course, dealing with that is, when you think about reproductive rights. And it's like, it's sold like, oh, women are fighting and they're going out and they're protesting, they're doing their marches, all across the New World Order sort of thing to fight for their reproductive rights. And if you were an alien and you're an intelligent alien species and you came here and you say, well, if they're fighting for reproductive rights, that must mean they want the ability to reproduce, right? Well, no, it's the inverse. They're fighting for the right to be able to abort babies, to murder, basically. In my opinion, that's my opinion, right? Like I do agree with abortion when it comes to extreme cases like rape and stuff like that. But other than that, I mean, I think it's you're killing a human being, basically.
Oh yeah. I mean, have you ever seen? I'm sure you have some of these. There's footage out there, of course, with the new YouTube. I'm not sure if it still exists anywhere outside. Maybe some of my videos peppered and hidden within. I always try to hide stuff, but there's some footage out there of some of these young ladies, if you will, at these, abortion clinics and just going bonkers and crazy. And I feel just full on manifestation, whether people believe in demons or not. I mean, these little girls are acting like monsters, growling, hissing, the whole thing. It's insane. It's something else, man. And like you say, the scariest thing is what they're actually fighting for. I want to be able to kill my baby.
Yes. I mean, it's nuts because you think, and it's like they have conditioned women, and it's so subtle. It's done everywhere. I mean, it could be subtle. It can be like as blunt as a a sledgehammer to the face, or it could be completely subtle, but it's in all your programming. It's in all your television shows, the deconstruction of the family, the programming of women into feminism. I showed a commercial the other day, which was from the Bank of Canada, or no, sorry, Toronto Dominion, TD Bank. And it was again, the reversal. It was like, here was a tall redheaded woman who was in her 30s and, working in a bookstore, who had aspirations to be, a clothing designer, selling stuff. And she's working for this old man who represents the patriarchy, right? And he keeps putting up signs, 30% off, 40% off, 70% off. And then eventually he's declaring bankruptcy and closing up his establishment, his beautiful old bookstore, right? In an urban sort of setting, say it's Toronto or something downtown. And it's called Tall Tales. And you'd think, well, the bank's going to come in and somehow help the old guy keep his business alive because books are important, and it's a terrible loss to the community and stuff. No, what happens is the woman gets empowered. The women that work for the man gets empowered, that she goes and gets a student loan, and then gets her cultural Marxist degree, then buys the establishment that she used to work for to open up a clothing store. And then they show all the inclusive, diverse women of all different colors and ethnicities all smiling, in the end, sort of thing. And it's like, they're coding it in everything. When you mentioned too the Battle of the Sexes, are you familiar with the movie The Battle of the Sexes?
Is that the one about the tennis players?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead if you want to go in detail. That's it's a true story, for the people.
Well,
go ahead. Actually, good point. I guess it was all set up, but the way the media portrayed it, as it was just something else. But anyway, go ahead, man.
Billie Jean King.
Right.
So this is a character. Characters, right? You read stories like the Brothers Grimm. Well, I mean, I'm not saying it doesn't exist, and the character and these things didn't happen in a certain form, but everything is a manipulation. So Billie Jean King, back in the 1970s, this was, again, when we say it goes back decades, I mean, it literally does go back decades. So back in the 1970s, Billie Jean King was the best female tennis player in the world. And then there was the old boys club, and they're like, she had never beat a man, no chance, And so they orchestrated this match between her and a former male sort of, champion player who's, getting on in his age and is not touring and all that. And, the story, of course, she eventually wins the match. And this is a huge moment for the feminist movement. Now, the movie came out in 2017. Right. And again, I tried to get through it. I tried my best. I just had to turn it off, though. I mean, there are gratuitous lesbian scenes in the opening half hour of the movie. And it's so cliched. Like the old boys white male club is so cliched in their misogyny. Right. And it's just reinforcing over again how women have suffered. And that these lesbian female tennis players are icons, that are heroes, that have helped push, women's rights or human rights, push women's rights forward. And so women's tennis is a massive feminist indoctrination. It is used because to women's tennis, when you think about it, obviously it's way inferior to men's tennis technically. I mean, there's no chance that any women that is on the women's circuit could possibly compete against even the lowest ranking men on the male side sort of thing. But because of the sexualization and the women wearing the dresses and the Chris Evert Lloyds and the Martina, I don't know, some of the I can't, the names escape me, but some of the really sexy tennis stars, it became more of a watch for men. So they were able to lure both men and women to watch women's tennis. So women's tennis is one of the few elements of professional sports in which women have actually in some ways been more watched than men. In all the other sports, it's the reverse, of course, because really sports is, in my opinion, I mean, not even in my opinion, sports is an extension of tribalism and warfare, right? It's a male sort of thing, right? That's where its origins come from, right? It's a form of civilized warfare, really. So again, women's sports being used as a weapon to indoctrinate women into New World Order cultural Marxists, always the victim thinking, and that they always have to fight and they always have to. So they're pushing women into sports massively. And they've been using tennis as one of these major sort of elements to program the masses. In fact, what you'll see a lot with women's tennis is they'll say the women don't get paid as much as the men, and they deserve to get every bit as equal as the men. But one of the things that they always leave out is that the women's matches are much shorter than the men's matches. If you compare like Wimbledon championships, for instance, Roger Federer and Djokovic would go play 5 hours, say, right? And the women's final would be like 30 minutes or something, right? Because they're only playing the best of 3, and the level is not the same and all that. So there's so many different things, but it's endless because they can keep bringing it out. So tennis is one of the major methods of programming the masses, and there's been a ton of tennis movies coming out of Hollywood, that reinforce this narrative that women have to take control, women have to adopt male characteristics. And I want to say this, I'm not against women doing sports, but like, for instance, like I haven't been able to watch any of the matches, but I've been watching all the highlights of the World Rugby championship, right? That's going on right now. And I used to play rugby and I love the sport, right? But you couldn't get a more masculine sport than rugby. I mean, it is so physical. It is so grueling. It's so, dirty, and, it's just male testosterone,
Mm-hmm.
And yet when I'm clicking on a lot of these, World Cup of Rugby videos, I'm getting these feminist, or the female rugby, right, is being pushed heavily. And it's like, whoa, that's something I never want to see. Like, no offense, but that's an female thing to be doing. But this is the New World Order. Everything is being reversed.
Well, it's gotten so crazy. Look how far down the rainbow we've slid. Just over the last few weeks, I've covered some stories where some of these transitioning athletes from male to female are beating the hell out of these females to the point they're breaking their freaking bones.
Yes, and this is again, they can't just give women everything, right? So they have to have women fighting each other, and they have to have women fighting against. Now you're going to have the divide and conquer with the women, the feminists who are against the transgenders, right? The transgenders that are coming in and say, we're women too. And it's just another divide and conquer. So the New World Order puts all these transgender male to female athletes out there, and obviously they're men, right? Essentially, there's going to be no contest. And so they're running away and they're winning all these awards. And then you can't come out and say anything because then you're transphobic, right? And then it's another divide and conquer sort of thing.
Big sin. That's a big sin.
They're playing the women too. Like, it's not just like it's the way that the New World Order functions. It's a full divide and conquer at every single level, right? But I do believe the biggest one that we're facing, that we're all having to deal with, is the male female, the attack on, right, monogamous male female relationships. Even gay marriage is a full on attack on that, right? It's a deconstruction too. So they are normalizing. If you look at Hollywood movies, and I don't watch a lot, I try to watch some, right, that I feel that I could possibly digest, but it's very difficult for me. But the theme, anybody that's listening to this, just think of the themes in your television shows, your movies, right? Even your music videos, everywhere that you look, you're going to see the theme of broken families, right? Of divorced, estranged husbands, wives, ex-wives, divorce, multiple divorces. They're normalizing the deconstruction of the family and everything. And this is a full-on assault. So what we're seeing is using all the tentacles that they have, not just to program women. So they are programming women massively to put career first, right? And when you think about it too, when Bill Gates gets up on stage and says, if we could just lower, or we can just, change one of these equations and bring this down, we can significantly drop the population, right? Doing all that. Yeah. Well, this is the way they think. I mean, maybe these haven't been released per se in the sense that, but this is definitely the way they think. If we can just keep women from having children, so the idea that's being planted in women is don't put your career first, put your career first. But really, for women, fertility, the best age it's when they're younger, right? 16 to I think 24 is like their peak sort of time for fertility for a woman. So that would be traditionally the time period where you would be trying to have as many babies as possible. But if you can push women away from that and give them, even the ones that might entertain that idea later, just get them to wait. And then you have a much greater chance. And then you have at the same time the precipitous drops in fertility, where it's 60% down. I don't know how many people are aware of this. I don't know if you're aware of this, KJ, but like from the studies that have been done on male and female reproduction, they say that the average male sperm count is down 60% from the 1980s. And this is happening with the women as well. So now you have so many men and women that can't procreate, right? And this, like Children of Men, like the movie, right, where there's a future depicted where people can't have babies. And they say especially white people, for instance, are really suffering from this. And of course,
it's always well. You know what though? It's interesting though. I wonder if this is adding to the nihilism of the rise of thruples and sex parties and all this, because there's a lot of that going on now too. There's more and more stories coming out about people sharing, open marriages and bringing third and fourth in, and swinging, and the so-called Illuminati mask type parties. Well, that
polyamory
stuff is mainstream now. Yeah, right.
Yeah,
polyamory.
I've done videos, so I've done several videos on that topic alone, just polyamory. I mean, you look up on YouTube or you look on Google, and they're endorsing polyamory everywhere.
Big time.
Yeah, big time. And they are at the same time, saying, like, there's a channel called ASAP Science, right? And these guys are terrible. They're terrible. But they put out a video on why monogamy, and it's unbelievable, because it's dumbed down in the sense that it's all animated. It's like on a dry erase board with simple cartoon, rainbow sort of coloring and cartoon characters sort of thing. And it's, and this is the way that so much of their so-called science works on platforms like YouTube. But they had this whole thing breakdown. They're saying, why on earth would humans be monogamous? Very few species out there are actually monogamous. In fact, and then they go through percentages and stuff. They go through an entire video where they're talking about monogamy, and never once do they mention the term family. They don't even mention it. Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, that's the reason why. The reason why you would be monogamous is because you're raising children, you're having a family. That's the whole thing. But they are deconstructing the family. So they don't want you to think about family. They want you to think, and I've showed this, like the Marvel, the Star Wars, all these movies are all deconstructing the family. Guardians of the Galaxy, right? All these movies are about the deconstruction of the family. That your real friends or your real family is your friends, right? Preferably your rainbow friends of all the different, flavors of ice cream and the Bill Nye Science Guy ice cream bowl thing.
Sure.
Right? Like, that's your family. So that people, and this all coming in with the Brave New World and the CRISPR babies and the future sort of human reproduction, which will all be done in laboratories, right? It's not going to be men and women copulating anymore. They're going to change everything with the future of humans.
Well, they got the sex robots are looking more and more realistic. They say they're feeling more and more realistic. VR added into that, and all the other madness that's coming our way. I mean, it's going to be crazy because, again, so they've already created a system, especially through all of this kind of third wave insane feminism, and then you get on the male side, arrested development, right, and just the incel culture and stuff. So they've already got that system set up to where dating's going out and it's hookup culture or nothing, basically. It seems. Yeah. So Chads and Stacys, I guess, are doing well out there.
I showed, BuzzFeed, which I call ButtFeed.
Yeah.
Which is some of the worst New World Order programming that exists. But there are a dozen on YouTube. There are so many channels like this that target women, target men. And I showed like gay dating videos like way back in like 2014, 2015 that BuzzFeed was promoting. For instance, they had one, what do men think about on their first date, right? A homosexual date, right? A homosexual going out. And they were thinking like the first things that are popping up in these two characters as they're prepping to go out on their first date is things like, do I take his clothes off first or does he take off mine? You know, do I go down on him first? It was all about sex. And the catch line, the little thing that BuzzFeed does is at the end, while the guys are thinking about all the things like, do I do this first or does he does it first sort of thing? They were like looking at their phones and they're saying, what was his name anyways?
Yeah, that's horrible.
Yeah,
Yes. That's what they want, though.
Yes,
you know, you're just a piece of meat. You're an animal. You know, it's just get off. You know, it doesn't matter. Just go get off on another animal the next day. You know?
That's it. It's and the nature of sex is being completely changed, right? And this is why they can open up all these different types of sexualities, right? People that like ecosexuality, right? For instance, like an example of New World Order sexuality is people that want to have sex with plants and trees. And they're actually doing this to people, right? I know they're using a lot of actors and stuff, but the deconstruction of procreation, the deconstruction of, what sexual reproduction is. So when they say love is love, that's actually sex is what they're really saying. Because love is love. It's like, well, wait a second, you can't be a grown man and love a little boy. I mean, I guess you can, but that's terrible. That's pedophilia. But they are normalizing that.
Yeah, you're right. Love is the slogan, or one of the slogans for this. I don't even want to say it's the gay angle of the New World Order, because the gay part that they're weaponizing, if you will, that's a major part of this system. It's just, if it feels good, do it. There should be no restrictions on that. If you love someone, you love them. Love is love. Right?
Yeah. And like we showed, like in the Montreal and Toronto subways, they have all these adverts where they have males gangbanging, like in the shower and stuff like that.
What? That's on an advertisement
in the subways.
Oh my
gosh,
little
children are and stuff.
Wow.
And they'll show threesomes and guys in bondage and group gangbangs, and they'll have advertisements for gay cruise ships and
wow.
bear culture. The bear culture, which is the husky sort of hairy type male that's gay, and and then the swinging and all these things. They've been showing this for years. It's shocking what they are doing, and it's like a little bit here, a little bit there, and they're amping it up. So you may not notice it necessarily in your neighborhood right yet, but it is coming.
What's the ad campaign for again, that they're showing people gangbanging and stuff?
What you could do is you put in a search for Toronto subway gay adverts.
Okay, I'm sure
And
people are
you'll
looking
probably,
it up.
if you look in the images, you'll be able to see that, where they have cartoon depictions of interracial sort of threesomes, where they have like three guys naked. Well, you don't see their yeah. Do you see it?
No, I haven't looked it up yet.
Okay. So I mean, like you have to. It's out of this world. What's going on? It is out of this world. It's again. It all feeds into the depopulation theme, where it's like they've. The most powerful sort of force in nature is the sexual reproductive force, right? It is more powerful than even the hunger and stuff like that. It's the driving force, right? So like you see the male rams that are smashing into each other. Well, they're fighting for mates, right? Because they are so strongly controlled by their sexual drive that's what their existence really is. They're here to reproduce. Well, this is the same for humans. So they are taking that and they are twisting it and they are directing it in different. They're doing sex magic in many ways.
Sure.
Right?
Well, yeah. Look at the esoteric. How they're using Pan. We see a lot of Pan symbolism everywhere.
Yeah.
Even on Epstein Island, he had a little statue of Pan. I don't know if you saw that or not.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean that was full of all kinds of satanic and New World Order coding, right, for sexuality and what they're doing to humanity. So
right.
There's no doubt. In the cartoons, everything. It's everywhere these days. And it's like TEDx. TEDx is, if they're not giving feminist conferences, or they're not talking about the dangers of white nationalism and stuff like that, they're doing the virtues of pedophiles, or virtuous pedophile speeches and stuff like that. There's a channel called Barcroft, which puts up videos on virtuous pedophiles and mothers marrying sons and stuff like that. I mean, it's out of this world what they're doing. And the gender thing too. I mean, like, it's like in Sweden, right? Like, Sweden's crazy, right?
Oh,
We
yeah.
can all agree. But like, they changed their snow removal to eliminate gender bias a few years ago. I don't know if you remember this.
No, man, remind me, because I love, it's like stories from Sweden. It's almost like the Florida man stories in America. I don't know if you knew there was a Florida man thing. Do you know that?
I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah, so you can even look it up just on a search engine, anything but Google, of course. But, just look in Florida man, and you'll get just the craziest crimes nonstop. There's always some dude or a lady, out in Florida doing something bonkers. I mean, some of the craziest crimes are happening there, and it happens a lot, So it's near the so-called Bermuda Triangle. I've always thought maybe that's part of it. I don't know, but
yeah, well, it's probably more of their machinations and
right,
their scripted sort of narratives that help push this insanity, this clown world that's appearing everywhere.
Honk honk.
Yeah, Hong Kong. Well, that's honk
honk.
Oh, it's like, why did he say Hong Kong?
It's like just randomly throwing out countries.
Yeah.
Ukraine.
Okay. So back to Sweden there for a second. So people, you could check this out. It's crazy. It's like they changed their snow removal because they felt that their snow removal suffered from a gender bias, and that they were clearing districts that were devoted to male, sort of the patriarchy, like the business districts and the banking districts and stuff like that. So they gave priority.
Wow.
Yeah, it's so nuts. It's like,
dang.
What? But this is just the tip of the iceberg of where it's all going. Like, there's no end to what we're gonna see, because it's gonna get worse. I mean, this is the reality. The divide and conquer is on in every way, shape, and form. And we've seen it like so much, like over the last few years with the Me Too and the Time's Up, like these straight out of Hollywood, of course, right? These massive psyops to program women. So now every woman has to go out and adopt the victim status. And they could, it could be legitimate women mixed with women that have had, difficult encounters with men. Everyone's had awkward encounters sexually and stuff like that.
Yeah,
but
some of that needs to be exposed. I'm with some of that.
Yeah.
It really happened, absolutely. Because I know there's some creeps out there for sure.
Yeah, for sure. But the thing is that you take
they took it too far.
Well, I mean, it's a divide and conquer.
Right.
It's not meant to end. It's not meant to be resolved. It's just another massive way of programming women, right? And it's like for instance, when the whole Me Too thing was really taking off, women were just like, they had Hollywood celebrities, like they had one of the actors walking down the street, and she said she had a sign saying Me Too, and it said James Woods on it, right? And it's just like people are just walking down the street making these accusations, right, without any sort of trial or anything, right? You're automatically guilty because somebody said, accused you, sort of thing. And this is all the victim culture, right? The victim culture, the marshmallow, what I call the marshmallow programming of the masses, where everyone, like anti-bullying, like anti-hate, all these things, which are all mostly emanating from organizations like the ADL. But they are actually all against deconstructing freedom of speech, right? And preventing people, because everyone's a victim at all times.
Yeah, the Satanic Temple has a really big anti-bullying push as well. They're using that, of course, too.
Really?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, that's
sure. Yeah,
not surprised, actually.
Yeah, the Satanic Temple has like an after-school program for children that are bullied. So you can look into all this stuff.
Well, you know about the Ban Bossy campaign?
I don't think so.
Oh. You got to check that one out. All right, so There was a massive campaign, and it's still going. You could just check it out. You can just do a quick search, ban Bossy, and you'll find it. Anybody that's listening right now. And this was back in 2014. So when it came out, we were all snickering and covering this and laughing, but it's pretty serious. They wanted to ban the word bossy. So they're banning words, which all fits into, again, the whole reconstruction of history and Melinda Gates.
Yeah.
And
everything's being destroyed, Jeff. You know what I mean?
Yes, they're
everything's being destroyed.
It's like 1984, where everything's going to be rewritten. Everything. This is why we talked about it briefly on the last show that we did together about the Kindle Fire and the kindling fire,
right?
Like Ray Bradbury's Fahrenheit 451, where all the old books will be burned off because they have the gender bias, and they have the transphobia, and they have all these other homophobia and all these things. So everything has to be rewritten. Right?
Yeah, and hey, man, love is love. So, if you're doing something that doesn't fit into their narrative of their version of love is love, then it's evil. We can't have that. It's like I watched this video earlier today from a so-called Antifa kid, and it looked like, again, Mama's basement, dark in there. The kid looked disturbed. Some genes possibly not human. I'm just saying. Okay, this guy was kind of scary. But, he was very angry, and he was talking about this uprising, that this uprising's coming, and that, the poor people have had it and all that. A lot of that programming is in the Joker as well, just by proxy of the character anyway. It's in there. I thought it was a really good movie, but yeah, there's a lot of interesting things happening in it.
The Joker, I saw it too, albeit it was a rotten stream, but I felt it was necessary.
Bad date or something.
Yeah, like somebody's cam capture or whatever. I'm not going to go pay for their propaganda, but yeah, the movie's really well done, and it's a great acting from Joaquin Phoenix, right? But the narratives that are in there, the crazy white person, right? The men putting on makeup, which is everywhere. It is YouTube 101, right?
Yep.
So the clown world, right? All around you. The dangers of white sort of masculinity, right? That the Joker represents that. And then what does he resort to? He resorts to murder and vigilantism and things like that. And he has multiple mental illnesses, the normalization of the mental illness. These are all the things that they're coming out of the New World Order. They are normalizing mental illness. Look, first and foremost, again, anybody that has any mental illness has my, sympathy for sure. I'm not here to belittle it. And I know many people that have mental illnesses, so I'm not here to tell you it doesn't exist. But I'm telling you that the New World Order creates many of these mental illnesses, and it wants people to identify with them. And then it wants them to use those mental illnesses as their superpowers, which, of course, you've seen just recently with Greta Thunberg, right? Her autism, her Asperger's, right, disease is not a weakness; it's a superpower.
Oh, good observation, man. That's a good, I like that. That's a good catch.
And
You're
in fact,
right.
KJ, I just put up a video last week on this because The Walking Dead, which is, again, it's Hollywood, they had an episode that came out which had the exact, like verbatim, the exact same kind of quote, where they had a woman, a major character that they're creating and that they're building up, who is deaf. And one of her siblings is becoming deaf, and she's saying it's not a weakness, it's a superpower, right? And this just goes to show you.
Good catch.
Yeah, everything, like it's all their manufacturing, right?
As this system continues poisoning us, literally, physically, spiritually, mentally,
yes.
Now they want you to own your disease. Hey, it's okay to be 300 pounds overweight, man. Embrace it. There's more to love.
No, yeah, that's it. It's like, no, you are perfect, and everybody else, it's society that's wrong, right? It's the rest of the normal people who watch their weight and exercise and keep themselves and don't eat the junk food. Those are all the people that are they're trying to project their hatred and their intolerance on you. They're actually bullying you, right? So the Tess Holiday, which is the name, right? Tess Holiday. Right? Holiday, it'll be all right, right? It's like, just have your cake and eat it too. And they had Tess Holiday, who appeared on the cover of Cosmopolitan, globalism, one world government, right? The name itself, right? Cosmopolitan. And, she's a 550-pound supermodel who, is perfect, and she's wonderful. Although she's had, gazillions of face surgery, liposuction and all that stuff to remove the folds of fat from her face still looks rather attractive for a woman. And if she was thin, she would actually be an attractive woman. But she's going around and she's the model of this, pro-feminist, pro-obesity, like where it's not really obesity, and they're changing the sizes, because they came out with these XXXXL, whereas like 4 or 5 X's before the L sort of thing, and they're saying that's fat shaming. So they're trying to ban fat shaming, for instance. I showed this years back where in Alberta, up here, one of the provinces in Canada, they were trying to pass legislation that would prevent doctors from being able to use fat shaming. So that means if you were to go to see a doctor and you're an obese person, if he brought up your weight, he would be fat shaming you.
Wow.
Sort of yeah.
Wow, that's frightening. Oh, actually, I need to ask you kind of, we can always just kind of bounce around a bit. What are your thoughts on the election up there?
Oh, yeah, the rainbow election here. I didn't really give it too much coverage, because it is a selection, meaning that whoever is in is approved to begin with. And in my opinion, they're just actors, right, carrying out roles. But yeah, I mean, it's one of the things I showed with the Canadian election was, again, feminism was first and foremost. You had Elizabeth May, who's the leader of the Green Party, and yet, she has maybe 1 seat, I think, currently in government. I think they picked up 3 for the Green Party. They're the New World. I mean, they're all New World Order parties, every single one of them. They all make up the rainbow. There's 6 parties, and each one has a color of the rainbow. It's really astonishing. And so Elizabeth May talking about how, we need to end the gender bias in government and make sure that there are equal representations on every level of government, of course, and then of course Justine Trudeau, the incumbent sort of prime minister, echoing those thoughts. But yeah, the things that took precedence in the election, first and foremost, was climate change. 10 years ago, 12 years ago, climate change would be at the bottom. Now it's number 1, and it's because Greta Thunberg and the whole narrative has been built up to such a crescendo that when they're doing their debates, the leaders of these respective rainbow parties, it's climate change that's number 1. It's not the economy, right? It's not even women's rights, although that's there, of course, and the gender and all that is there as well. But yeah, it's a full New World Order, and it's like each party is saying, "I'm more New World Order. I plan to do more globalism. You think you're doing globalism? Wait till you see the globalism that we're gonna do."
Man, hey, that's an interesting perspective, because that's exactly what's happening in America with the Democrat Party, with the Democrats who are running to run for president, that they're all trying to outdo each other and be just as cuckoo and crazy or crazier than the next, just more socialist. I mean, they call it socialist. That's a soft term for communist, right?
Yes.
Or ultimately Marxism. So, but that's what they're doing. And each week it's something crazy. Like Beto just recently said something about dealing with the 501c version of the churches. And if you don't perform gay marriages, we'll take away your government benefits. So we've been waiting on that for a long time.
Yeah, exactly. Of course, all the religious institutions are, and that's one of the big things. I mean, that could be a whole nother discussion, which I think would be very worthwhile, is the New World Order religion, the one world religion that is coming forth. Which
they're all pulling together right now. I mean, I've done videos on what they really are.
Grace did a great video the other day on the tunnels in Washington and the Baha'i sort of New World Order religion. And that's, it's very closely aligned to Satanism and all the other types, and the Roman Catholic Church as well, all being incorporated into this global sort of one world, which is what they're going to do. I mean, this is what they're doing. So, but yeah, I mean, it's crazy. It's everywhere we look, we're getting divided and conquered. Everywhere we look, we are seeing a transformation of our societies. Like I walk around on the streets in Montreal, all the streets have been changed now, where, they're giving precedent to bicycles. Right. And they're expanding the sidewalks because we're all going to be walking around, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Not everything that they're doing necessarily is going to be awful for humanity. But they're creating traffic snafus all over my city because they're they've expanded the bike lanes to take up most of the streets, and then they're putting these electric bikes in everywhere and these electric scooters. So you walk down the street and you got to navigate around these things because people just leave them everywhere, right? But it's just an example of how quickly this transformation is happening. And so what we're seeing, I mean, it's just going to amp up. It's going to get more and more and more, especially what we're seeing and what we're talking about today with the feminism. It's going to get more and more and more. And this is where it's so important to try to reach young women, especially young men as well. I mean, to reach them and teach them, about, human reproduction and families and the importance of traditional sort of human roles, and not allow them to succumb to the programming of depopulation, of eugenics. This is ultimately what it is saying you're the best thing ever, but you're never going to reproduce. You're the best thing ever. Here's some drugs, here's some junk food, get addicted, get obese, have your kicks, do whatever you want, and you're the greatest thing ever. And anybody says anything, it's them that's the problem. And if you're suffering from a mental illness, it's because of everyone else. And this is, again, when we talk about the mental illness thing, this is the way it's played. It's like, they are definitely programming. I mean, people that people that are hooked up to their Black Mirrors all the time. It's like people you see walking around your cities that can't walk down the street and actually look around what's happening to them. They're hooked up to their device. And they're addicted because these devices and these platforms, these social media websites they were designed by DARPA and other types of agencies to addict and program the masses into a hive mindset.
Hey, do you ever watch Dr. Phil? It's an American program, but you know who he is, right?
Doctor who?
Dr. Phil.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Man, I always wonder about him. I don't know. And, I also don't like casting false accusations on people because God knows I've had them put on me. You've had them put on you. Yeah. And also he's from my home state, Oklahoma, and claims to be a Christian and in Jesus and all this and all that stuff. You know what I mean? So that's why I say I hate to just kind of say this guy's a Satanist or something evil. But what he does is he's interesting because it's like a lot of his shows, I think, kind of create and promote this kind of mental illness, especially in young ladies. And then later it's rewarded, because then, and he's rewarded later because then he gets to keep doing shows with all these new damaged young ladies and young men sometimes coming up from all of this programming that's been going on. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. That's exactly what's happening. And yeah, I wouldn't hesitate to call Dr. Phil Dr. Shill. I mean, come on, right? You're on the Oprah Winfrey Network, of course, As Above, So Below, Reverse, OWN, NWO, right? And what are the OWN, the NWO, the New York Times bestsellers, the CNN, the whole cultural Marxist programming, right? In many ways, Oprah Winfrey, the show that Oprah Winfrey was all about feminism and promoting feminism and making women feel that they're invictive and making women empowered. The Spice Girls, for instance, the girl power. This has been programmed into girls from birth. I mean, maybe not from birth. You can't say like, oh, well, they're babies, they're getting this. But as soon as they're put in front of a device or a television, they're being indoctrinated into girl power. Right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, the clothing. Like I see girls all the time. Girls rule. Girls rock. Girls are boss. Like you got people out there that are listening to this. You got to be seeing this, right? That this is the programming, the indoctrination of little girls into, and again with all the movies, the battle angels, right? The types of Miss Marvel or Ms. Marvel, of course, right?
Oh, yeah, Captain America, right? Or not Captain America. What was her name?
Marvel,
Captain Marvel,
or Wonder Woman.
Did you see Wonder Woman?
No.
Okay, I'll say this. I actually wound up stumbling on that movie and watching it. I liked that out of all of them because they actually didn't push that feminism thing as hard. However, there was tons of symbolism like Mother Goddess stuff and all this other stuff. But so I wouldn't. But however, there was actually, I guess, some of that feminist stuff.
Well, yeah. I mean, you think about it: Wonder Woman, WW33, and then you've got Marvel and DC, one and the same. The rainbow type programming, all the different characters that make up the Justice League or the Avengers. I mean, they're one and the same pretty much. And then you think it's Gal Gadot, right? Who is former Miss Israel as the Wonder Woman. I didn't see the movie,
That's a
but
good catch. Yeah.
yeah, there's so much with all of these films and these shows that are programming whole generations of women or girls, you know, getting them as young as possible into this girl power sort of, and it's all again, ultimately it's all about deconstruction, depopulation, the deconstruction of the family nucleus, turning women against being mothers, turning women against having monogamous relationships with men, right? The L word, the lesbian programming that's being pushed everywhere, where the Pornhub, you know, these porn, we've talked about that last time we were doing on, but Pornhub releases like and this becomes New York Times and CNN and all the big Disney media does stories on it, which is Pornhub releases the top search terms in the world for each country and then for each state. And you know what the number one searched term last year, 2018, was in the United States? It was lesbians.
Right. I remember this one. Yeah, that was the females, right? Actually.
Yeah, I mean,
right. And then what about the men? Was it? Do we?
No, it was. That's like the number one thing that's search period sort of thing. So,
oh, really?
And for women and for men, but yeah, and then you know, anal sex and all these different things, transgender.
Right. That's what I saw. I saw a study where the top couple searches for women, one of the top few searches for women was lesbian, and one of the top few searches for men was trans.
Yes, you're right, 100%. That's exactly it. And it's like, what?
Yeah, and I covered it flip-flopping. You know?
Yeah, I covered back in 2015 how there was a Canadian professor. I think it was a University of Ryerson or Carleton. I can't remember. And this professor, this female, was saying, you know, heterosexual couples should try she-male porn and transsexual porn, transgender porn, because they might like it. Right? Like it's some sort of product, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's you should try this, you know, this type of apple or something, right? You might actually like it, you know. And it's like,
right.
No, you never. And first of all, we know that porn is evil, right? We don't have to debate that. We talked about that before, but that this is just an example of how they're being programmed, right? And it's like, and then Melinda Gates, for instance, when we talk about the gender, like they want to rewrite all the books. So this is one of the Melinda Gates's big initiatives, which is they're going to eliminate gender bias from all books. So this is, again, when we say that the Kindle and the Fire, Fahrenheit 451, just like 1984, just like Brave New World, they're all manifesting right before our eyes, right? And Melinda Gates was saying that why women in Africa are suffering, right? You think about women in Africa, especially if they're in villages, they're having lots of children. They're outside, they're wearing beautiful, bright clothing, right? Okay, yeah, you know, they don't have the lifestyle that we have, but chances are they're way happier than the average person because they're outside all the time. They're taking care of their communities, right? They're growing crops and all these different things, raising kids. But Melinda Gates comes in and says, we need to change all that because we need the 95% of women in Africa don't have smartphones. And I remember covering this.
Gosh, yeah, man, I cannot believe this. Yeah, we got to change this.
Yeah, we got to change.
We got to connect these people to the hive quick.
Exactly. So it's sold like, oh, these poor women are oppressed because they don't have their mind control. Well, that's not what they call it, right? But that's what it is. It's like,
wow.
You know, and then when she's pressed on what would women gain from having, you know, smartphones, and she said this. She said they would have the access to go on to access to search the internet privately. You know, like,
oh, isn't that just wonderful?
Yeah, and that's like not even true at all, of course, for any of us, right? But I mean, it's madness because it's like, oh, that's a problem, and it's like, well, wait a second, maybe those people have it right. Right? Maybe the way that they live life is far more fulfilling and far happier, and you're much better off as say a woman or a man.
Definitely.
Yeah.
That makes me, it kind of makes me think, even in a bigger picture sense of all of this, you know, this battle against the family, the eugenics, you know, it's such a major part of this whole occultic, you know, system, really, with these hidden controllers, you know, whatever you want to call them, but that's such a major part of this, isn't it? But you know, to me, like another part of it is it's a hatred for not just humanity, but for real love. And like maybe that's why they hate the family so much, because there's no other love in this world like the love a parent can have for a child. And I don't have kids, you know, that I know of.
Yeah.
much, but I'll be here all week, folks. Tip your waitress. But seriously, so there's no other love like that. So I imagine that's another reason why they love killing those babies and why they don't want people having as many.
And also, this as well. I mean, when the SHIT hits the fan, it's your family that's there, right? And your friends, it's not your good friends, hopefully will be there, but it's really always family at the end of the day that will have your back, right? When things get bad, and that's reinforcing the importance of it. But again, that's the target. The target is we're going to reconstruct human reproduction. We're going to take complete control of it, and we're going to deconstruct families. We're going to depopulate, and we're going to program people into the rainbow eugenics. And then we're going to, so if you're programmed into, even if you're programmed into feminism, like for instance, is it going to make you happier being a woman where you're not having a family, you're going to work, so you're making money and stuff like that, so you have that, but chances are you're engaging in alcoholism and drugs because these are always being pushed by the NWO as well, and that maybe you aren't really happier, maybe you got more money, but maybe at the end of the day you're actually unfulfilled because the ultimate sort of purpose of a woman is to give. I mean, women create life. They're in a way they're like gods, like mini gods in that sense, right? They have the ability to create life. I mean, obviously, it takes the seed of a man to start the whole process, but it's still the women that give birth, and there's nothing more fulfilling. I mean, any mother out there will tell you this. I mean, some mothers may be depressed or weren't in the right mindset when they
sure. And I was about to add that as well. I mean, just because someone has a child doesn't automatically mean they're going to love this child like nothing else, because we know there's a lot of monsters out there too.
Exactly. But then again, I mean, there's a lot of monsters out there. If you put on CNN, there's a lot of monsters if you're watching Fox News, right?
Sure,
they're being programmed, but nonetheless, I think most women that have had children would tell you there's nothing more fulfilling. I get this all the time from women, right? That this is the most fulfilling thing that you could, because nothing can really compare to it, right? And that's what they want to eradicate. So when you take that away from women and then you condition them into being men and working in glass towers, inherently, I think at that point, women are going to suffer and are suffering. And then they have depression. And then what does the New World Order say? Says, your mental illness is your superhero or your superpower, right?
Right.
It's your superpower. And you're a victim, again, because of the X, Y, and Z, usually the patriarchy and the males and not being accepted and, being a second class and everything else. And so the women then are being reinforced again into this, staying away from being families, staying away from raising children, staying away and working in glass towers. And that's so, like, this is the evilness that we're facing in so many ways, is that the mental illness that they're normalizing and they're trying to get people to identify is being manufactured by the New World Order. I mean, if you're eating the toxic foods, if you're eating the genetically modified, all the sugars and all the, synthetic meats and all that stuff, chances are you're not going to be in a good state physically, mentally, because you are what you eat, right? So if you're eating poorly, you're eating the junk food, the McMeals and all the fake foods and the estrogen mimickers and all the things that are going into your foods that are messing with your endocrine system, your hormonal system, right? All these things are creating that perfect storm within you. And then you're putting on your television, you're watching Game of Thrones. I mean, what are they doing on Game of Thrones? Well, they're burning a daughter at the stake. Right? Stuff like that.
Right.
I mean, like over and over again, your most popular entertainment is assaulting you. And
right.
And Game of Thrones too. You could say Game of Thrones, re-traumatizing women or putting horrible characters, male characters in that do just despicable things to women, like the Ramsay Bolton type characters that you see, right? To reinforce, these, and the thing is that people got to realize this when you watch the movies and the shows and the music videos and all these things, there's so much that's collected by your subconscious that you are unaware of, but they certainly are. The satanic sort of New World Order overlords, they understand mind control better than anyone else in the world. They perfected it. So they know how to create these, these shows that'll lure you in and then hit you and assault you in all different ways. And so when you go to sleep at night, a lot of these things will manifest in your dreams or your nightmares, which they prefer, of course, right? So that women are, being men are being traumatized too. I mean, what do you got? Game of Thrones, you got men that are being castrated over and over again, right? You've got all these different themes that are being pushed that are all ultimately toxic, and you're lured in because it's very entertaining, it's really well acted, and it's beautifully shot, and all these things. So it's an enticing sort of treat that they gang you in, but it's ultimately very toxic for you. And
hasn't there been some interesting programming on some children's shows recently, like Sesame Street, some of those shows?
All the time. All the time. In fact, I show with the CBC Kids, which so here in Canada, we have the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, which I call the Canadian Brainwashing Corporation. And they have the Saturn headquarters here in Montreal with the hexagon. Really? Yeah, it's a hexagon. It's crazy. It's out of this world. They on their kids shows, their main mascot or their main character is a rainbow unicorn. And they do segments where they'll do things like Wigged Out, where they'll get boys to put on wigs and stuff like that, and do crazy things. And this is all just subtle sort of indoctrination programming. They and again, I told you, I said on the last show where there's all these primetime shows featuring transgender characters, transitioning. They got Drag Kids, a show that follows around the drag characters that you see, the Desmond is amazing and the Lactatia type characters. And these are on prime time, right? It's out of this world. So Sesame Street has always been a New World Order sort of thing. Diversity. Again, I'm not against, I have to say that I'm not against interracial or anything like that. I think I think everybody's awesome or can be equally good or equally bad, regardless of what your ethnicity is or your skin color or anything like that. So it's irrelevant to me, but it has always been about that. It has always been about the New World Order and indoctrinating people into this mentality.
I want to share something with you too, real quick. This is actually a little piece of my newest video, and it's going to be in there anyway, but I'll go ahead and tell you about this because it applies to what we're talking about. But with this unicorn programming, have you seen this there's a new series on Netflix called Living with Yourself with Paul Rudd?
Haven't seen it. But
so it just came out like a week ago, and it's, I think 6 30-minute long episodes. The basic idea is that this guy he doesn't realize what he's getting into, but he pays a group to make a clone of him and then transfer all of his thoughts to the clone and basically make him a new person, right? So they do the process. He wakes up, he feels great, he goes home, and then later he goes out in his garage and he runs into his old copy of himself. And they find out later that usually once they transfer, I guess, all the consciousness over to the new body, they kill the old one. Well, they tried to kill the old guy here, but he lived. So now these two have to live together with each other. All right. But here's the weirdest part. I mean, that's pretty interesting right there anyway with the cloning stuff. But, and again, this will be in the video, but it has to do with the unicorn stuff. And to me, that's just another example of this beast system manifesting into what it is, right? Ultimately going to be. And that's a big symbol for it, because in this show, there's some interesting unicorn programming, and they never explain it. They never go back and talk about it again. There's only maybe 2 short sequences or 3. There's a sequence where one of the scientists is walking around with a unicorn horn on his head, and he's playing with his daughter, and she's in the lab with him, and she's dressed up like a unicorn. Also, when he first goes into this place, the first thing he sees is a little toy unicorn laying on the ground. It's in a shopping center. Behind this, front is the lab and all the cool stuff. It's just kind of a front. But he sees a little toy unicorn. And after they make the transfer, the scientists say the first thing to remember is when you first go number 1, right, go to the bathroom for the first time, don't look down in the toilet. Well, he goes and pees and he looks down and it's a rainbow, right, which is interesting. So so here's the transfer, right? Here we are, right? Moving, literally an example of us shifting into this, gay is part of it, but this beast system, this new reality, this, right? This, we've transferred over. So it's interesting.
Yeah. It's in everything too. It's in everything. In fact, the last summer, the big pool item was the giant rainbow unicorn float. Like it's just everywhere you look, you'll see the rainbow unicorn. Of course, the unicorn is one of the Rothschilds. It's on their family crest, right? It's a symbol of the Rothschild family as well, not just a symbol of eugenics.
Yeah,
But
isn't that weird? I've always thought that was strange that that's on the crest.
yes,
Right in front of our face.
yeah, exactly. So and also like the two main symbols for when you talk about they're mythical creatures too. So the two main ones are the unicorn and the mermaid. And you'll see both of these everywhere. Like if you just pay attention, you'll see it everywhere. I mean, you can scarcely walk down the street without seeing.
Check this out. Sorry to cut you off.
Yeah,
I just want to add this. So, have you heard of this new movie called The Lighthouse?
Yes.
Yeah, and it's made by Robert Eggers, the guy that made The Witch.
Yes,
which is
A24. I've
brilliant.
Yeah.
I mean, I did a video on it, but it really was one of the most Luciferian films I've ever seen because it shows the rewards you get if you sell yourself to Satan, basically, right? Which is crazy.
Which film is that?
The Witch. Did you ever see?
Oh yeah. I've seen. Oh boy,
like the end was just shocking, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, not
and it's a total attack on Christianity as well.
Yeah, totally. This is all the good things you get when you sell out to literally to Baphomet, to the goat god in the movie. But so the guy that made that movie made this movie, The Lighthouse. Funny, I just watched it recently, but funny you're talking about, and because I have to. Again, I'm a film student. I have to see this stuff. But it's funny you mentioned mermaids because that's what this is about. It's about two guys in a lighthouse going crazy, and there's a Cthulhu type creature. Yes. There's a mermaid. It's all in there.
Yes.
So again, this is like fantasy becoming reality is another example of that.
It's very interesting. I'm also a film guru type guy, so I try my best. Like I'm also kind of a horror film fanatic sort of thing, but at the same time, very acutely aware of the programming. I saw, ironically, I saw Hereditary last night for the first time.
Oh, what'd you think about it?
Oh, it's nuts. It's nuts. Absolutely nuts. I mean, they're literally raising demons. It's a total deconstruction of the family as well. Right? It
absolutely is. A good point, man. It falls right into what you're talking about. It really is. It's this total destruction of a family. Yeah,
exactly. And it's the New World Order. It's demons that manifest within the family and tear it apart.
Right.
So
that was Midsummer as well. His
Midsummer
film. That's the same kind of thing.
I'll just say I Ari Aster is the director of both Midsummer and Hereditary. And I think he's exceptionally talented, and his films are really well done, but they're extremely evil at the same time.
Yeah, so. He's like another. Who's the guy that made Mother? Darren Aronofsky, right?
Darren Aronofsky, yeah. They're all part of the same tribe.
They're all part. Well, no, you're right. They're definitely a part of that, and I think a lot of them might be hipster type Satanist, Hollywood type.
Oh yeah,
yeah, I mean, especially with those movies, he did Noah as well, which is total blasphemy and Gnostic. And I showed this a few times. One of the videos got taken down from YouTube, but he was dating Jennifer Lawrence, who was an actress in that movie Mother, right? But he was dating her at the same time, and she was going on TV talk shows, in front of millions of Americans. And she was literally wearing full-on upside-down crosses on her ears, both of them,
all the time. It's everywhere. Yeah. It's so blatant. That's the scary thing. I mean, these movies are extremely well done, and they're very good horror films, but they're also very close to home and what they're actually doing to humanity. So it makes it even more disturbing to watch this. I saw Robert Eggers, the director of and the writer of The Witch, and I was like, as soon as I saw him, I'm like, oh yeah, he's a Satanist without a doubt, right? And all these movies are crazy. Like they are.
There was a big endorsement from the Church of Satan with the movie The Witch. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that was all. It's all connected.
Yeah, because
it's just another example of the more they've pushed to God and morals and modesty out of the world and society. The more they try to do that, they're trying to give a replacement, right? That's outside of anything godly, right? If you will, right? Outside of Jesus or anything like
inverse.
That. Connected.
It's the inverse, right?
Yeah.
It's always the inverse. Another one. Oh, if you haven't seen this one, definitely mark it down and watch it. It's called Mandy.
Oh my gosh. Look, again, you and I probably like the same stuff.
Yeah.
And I say it openly. Again, I've had some, I've got a wonderful audience, wonderful subs. Some of the people are extremely religious, so they get real mad at me for being into that. It's like, hey man, this is what I mean. My parents still go to church every Sunday, but he raised me on the craziest horror films and bloodiest movies, like, so I don't see it the same way. Plus, like you say, we understand the programming and all that. So a good one comes along. I remember it. Mandy, that really knocked my socks off. That was just a bonkers film. I should do a breakdown on that sometime. What did you get out of that?
Oh yeah. The
fun.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
It's an inverse as well, and the Saturn sort of programming.
Oh, he's definitely a Satanist. That's the thing. Again, I can separate that. I feel the guy that made that certainly knows what he's doing. He's done the research, and I feel he's promoting. It's all very much a satanic idea throughout the whole thing.
Well, yeah, like I saw with Hereditary, Ari Aster, just like because I was researching it after watching it, and he was saying, oh, I'm not a Satanist, but I went and had to do the research and I was blown away. And it's like, okay, whatever. That's what the Disney media tells you. That's what he's telling you. But more likely than not, these people are full-blown Satanists and they know exactly what they're doing. And this is what they're showing. They're showing the rise of the beast, right? The beast system.
Yeah.
And
promoting it. Sure.
Yeah. And it's pretty scary to watch. I mean, the depiction of Christianity in the movie The Witch is really extremely toxic, right? And it's like it's so blatantly a celebration of narcissism and of Satanism, right? In the end, where she flies up in the sky naked with all the other witches, it was like she triumphed because she shedded the oppressive sort of Puritan Christian sort of lifestyle, right? And that the Christians all rip each other apart, basically. And again, it's a deconstruction of the family. The whole movie of The Witch, the whole family just disintegrates, right? The mother loses the baby and she can't get over it, right? And it's like she falls apart and the whole family falls apart and they're all blaming each other. And this is what we're seeing. I mean, and again, just to agree with you on the point of, watching these films, I don't really enjoy watching these films. I remember watching The Witch and being really disturbed. I was really disturbed with Hereditary. I was really disturbed with Midsummer.
Right.
Like, I find these films very, very disturbing, and I don't go around recommending them unless you're a real big horror fan, but they are very revealing for what the NWO is up to and how this is all coming up now. Like they're literally raising the beast. So you've seen it everywhere. It's like when they're erecting satanic sort of statues in public squares and stuff like this. This is just a change. Everything is being reversed.
Well, speaking of the movies, didn't you do kind of a breakdown on Halloween, like the last Halloween? What did you see in that?
Well, again, have you seen the 2018 Halloween?
Yes, it was the brand. Well, it's weird is the remake was written by and directed by, what was his name? David Gordon Green. Yeah. He graduated from my film school like 2 or 3 years ahead of me. So they were the older cool kids when I went to film school.
Wow.
And Danny McBride's his friend. And so he wrote this movie together. They wrote it. Danny McBride wrote this. And I met Danny out there when I was in college. It's crazy. He was a few years ahead of me, and they had done The Foot Fist Way. Did you ever see that movie?
The what?
The Foot Fist Way.
No, I haven't.
It's pretty crazy. It's a comedy, but it's about a redneck that runs a karate studio in North Carolina, and he definitely doesn't understand boundaries. So it's pretty funny stuff. But
yeah, I wonder, that's typical of Hollywood and small hats to do those types of films depicting whites. And this is what you see in this film. In fact, the 2018 sort of reboot of the Halloween, which they've rebooted over and over again, completely unnecessary.
Yeah, just for the money, for sure.
Well, not just for the money.
And the programming.
The programming is massive. And so what I exposed in my video dealing with that was that it was, again, hardcore feminist programming where the roles have been reversed. The females are the strong characters. They're the ones that have all the character and they have all the strength. The males have been, all of them are all emasculated. The father of the family, the main family and he's a kind of balding guy. He couldn't be more of a beta male. I mean, he's just useless. He's worse than useless, right? Like it's like, and the characters, like the daughter is dating some guy and they seem to be in love, but then they're at a Halloween dance, and of course they do the reverse. All the men dress up as women and all the women dress up as men. They're dressed as Bonnie and Clyde, but of course,
I remember that.
Yeah, she's Clyde and he's Bonnie, right? And for some reason, he's at the dance with this beautiful girl, and she goes to use the washroom, and he starts making out with another girl, and then she comes back and catches him, and it's like there's no context, there's
Yeah,
no reason for
that
that to
made no
happen.
sense.
Yeah, and it's like, again, toxic males, and then one of her friends who's like this another, kind of chunky, obese, beta male, and he, betrays his friendship with this girl to try to make out with her, and she's disgusted with him. And then meanwhile, you got this guy in a white face that's going around murdering everybody. So
That's yeah, that's true.
Like the way I see it is that it's again another example. Mad Max Fury Road. You've seen that one.
Oh gosh, that one. I did a few videos on that. That really made me sick to my stomach. And that's another example, again, of course, of that rise of not just with feminism, or whatnot, but the rise of this mother goddess worship. The return of the witches, the rise of pagan religions again, the ancient ones. That's what that all was. Isn't it funny that it was all about witches at the center of the whole thing? Even the poster for it. It's like Max was in the background. He's supposed to be a badass. I mean, Mad Max is amazing. The old school Mad Max. Those are amazing. Me too. I love him, man. Thunderdome, come on, dude.
Yeah.
But in the new posters, though, he's in the background, and there's Charlize Theron up front with a buzz haircut, looking all tough, and she's front and center of the movie poster for Mad Max. So that's all we needed to know.
Yeah. And again, too, the symbolism. So you have Mad Max for more than half the movie. He never says anything because he's been muzzled, right? And that's so deeply symbolic.
Oh, that's true. That was annoying. He is literally muzzled for almost half of the entire film. And then he gets his ass beat by a couple of girls for a while and somehow gets away. And then I don't know.
And of course the toxic white male who is the main antagonist in the story is he has a harem of women that he's using, right, to breed and to make milk from their breast milk and stuff. And it's like, again, that the patriarchy and that the male characters are so evil. They're so one-dimensional. Even the character of Mad Max, I think he has like 8 lines in the entire film.
Yep.
Right. And he's not really the main star of the movie. He's not even the protagonist. It's Charlize Theron's character. Yep. Right.
Yeah, he's just passing through. That's all right.
It's still and it's a spectacular
visually, yes, amazing.
So it lures you in because you get the action and you get all those sort of rewards, but ultimately you walk away and you've been programmed again more into the feminism, more into the New World Order and the fall of the patriarchy and how evil men are, and we just can't have men running things anymore. So it's everywhere in all your films and all your movies is happening. And I only see slices. I mean, I'm like you, I'm watching way more of the movies than I am the television shows, but I imagine it's in all the television shows as well. And you think about the normalization, 3 Men and a Baby, and all these movies that have been coming out in the television shows, 2.5 Men, like the normalization of dysfunctional sort of, maybe, homosexual, homoerotic sort of programming that goes into everything now that becomes more and more in your face. Like it has been weaved in over the decades, where they start with shows like Will and Grace, for instance, right? Where one of the main characters is homosexual. And then that scene is liberating and great. Now with GLAAD, of course, right? The gay and lesbian advancement, which is just another offspring of the ADL. You have, you cannot, in Hollywood, you cannot produce movies that depict gay people or transgenders in a negative light. You have to always have them as heroic characters. And so all your shows have changed over the past few decades. And this is what you're seeing more and more reinforced. The total deconstruction, not just of family, but the deconstruction of human beings themselves, the normalization of people that in the past were always marginalized, but for realistic, I mean, like, again, I'm never would be in favor of ever, ostracizing, gay or lesbian or transgender people or anything like that. Right. But the thing is that traditionally it's always been a very small percentage of the population that would identify as that. And therefore, that's why they've always been kind of marginalized, because they've always been such a small percentage of the population. But you would think now, where we have 365 days a year of pride and every other day is some hashtag, of gender awareness day, homophobia day, whatever, right? All these things all the time. You would think that they're 99% of the population.
Yeah, but you know what, too? It reminds me of, I'm sure you've heard of Sex and the City, the TV show, right? It started from a book, I guess a series of books. So within the last few months, the lady that created that wrote all of those, the woman behind it, she came out and said she thinks she made a big mistake, telling women that that's what life was all about, to be a young, single, independent woman. And now she finds herself, I think she's in her 60s and alone.
Yes.
She never had kids, and she's like, this really sucks. I think I made the wrong choices.
Yeah, so it's a show that I've seen a few episodes of, sort of thing, but I've never, most women, I would imagine, of a generation would have followed that and watched that. Really, they're very good at writing, so they can make things really funny. But ultimately, what does it depict? It depicts a bunch of 30-something women who put their careers and their narcissism and their, self-advancement before everything. And that the socialite sort of existence of whining and dining and drinking and having multiple partners and never settling down is the lifestyle, because you're having fun. When really, ultimately, you're giving away your best years of reproduction, you're the peak years of female sort of reproductive, and you're, turning against traditional sort of female roles and family and being a mother sort of thing. So yeah, it's all from the same, it's the New World Order. All these shows, none of them are your friends. You might like them, and we've all been in those situations where we've grown up maybe with something, a program or movies and stuff like that, where we've grown an attachment to our programming. And this is one of the dangers. I mean, I talk all the time about suspended childhood, arrested development, the nostalgic programming that's in all your movies. So it's like, as a kid, I used to read the Marvel comic books. So now all the movies are Marvel movies. So people from our generations would grow up, reading that stuff as a kid, and then likely lining up to go watch these movies in the theater. And
I just want to add something to that too. It's also interesting, like you're talking about with the programming and from childhood. That's why they keep bringing back the same stories over and over again. But now they're replacing the main characters. And again, this is just what they're doing. I'm not trying to point fingers here and make this a racial thing, but they are replacing all the characters with either black characters or females, like every single time. Sometimes a black female as well. Again, not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's the way they're doing it. It's so obvious an agenda.
Yeah, it's what they do. So, there's umpteen examples. I mentioned Wolverine, for example, right? And they kill off Wolverine very symbolically on a tree sort of thing, and they bludgeon him, right? And he's replaced by his cloned female superior offspring, right? If you've seen the movie Logan, have you seen that one?
Yeah, I did. And man, that's a good point. Yeah.
And of course the new Wolverine, the female Wolverine is better. She has more power. She has claws not only in her hands, but she also has them in her feet. And she was grown in a test tube. She was a clone, basically, an enhanced clone of Wolverine. And then you've got, Miss Marvel, Supergirl. First you have Superman, but now it's all Supergirl. You used to have Captain America. Now Captain America is going to be replaced by a black guy, right? That's just another example. The Hulk, the She-Hulk, right? They give you these characters, the female, and then they bring in the female. So if you look at the new upcoming sort of, how Marvel has their seasons, and this is unprecedented too when it comes to entertainment. This is one thing I hope everybody can take this into consideration when they're listening to this show, is that there's never been such a concentration of media control as we have at this moment, right? Where there's like 5 major corporations that control everything. Right, all your movies, all your games, all your sports, your news. It's all right. Disney controls Star Wars. They control Fox News. They control ABC News. They control ESPN. They control Marvel. They control Star Wars. I mean, it's everything. So many different things. So when you look at Marvel and they have their cinematic universe, and they just, I think it's just the 3rd or 4th season that they finished, or they have them in chapters. And so the next stage, as they call them, this next stage, which I think is either stage 4, stage 5, and it's all the rise of the female characters. And they showed this symbolically in, if you watched Avengers Endgame. Did you see that film? KJ? Oh, I'm not sure.
Sorry, man. Can you hear me?
Yeah, there you are.
Yeah, sorry. I clicked the wrong button. I actually have not seen that because it's like supposed to be, what, 3 hours long or something?
Yeah.
And I haven't done it yet, but I've been meaning to. Is it worth it?
Well,
I'm sure there's tons of programming. Obviously.
Yeah, that's what
I
mean
like looking for in those. You know,
I would say for you, yes, because you are, because of the work that you're doing. But yes, the themes are all there in Avengers Endgame, and there's a deconstruction of the family as well, a disintegration of the family when it comes to Hawkeye. Which is all deeply symbolic. But there is a scene in the film which is deeply symbolic. You can Google search this, where they're fighting Thanos for control of the Infinity Gauntlet, right? And all of a sudden, all the female characters are all on the screen together. There's like 30 of them, and they're all like, she's got help. And all of a sudden, it's just all the women all together. And so the media had a field day with this, and they said Avengers Endgame shows the rise of the feminist, superheroes, and that the next sort of season, or the next whole chapter in the Marvel Cinematic Universe is going to be devoted to all the female characters. So you're going to have Miss Marvel, Miss She-Hulk, all these female characters that are going to get the big movies. And you saw that with the what's her name there, Miss Marvel, right? What's her name? Brie Larson, right? And she purposely, like, this is all part of a script. Like, never make the mistake of thinking that these things are just incidental, or she just spoke her mind, where she came out and she said, I don't want to hear white men.
Yeah, I remember that.
critiquing my movies, right? These movies aren't for middle-aged white men, they're for women, right? Sort of thing. That's divide and conquer sort of thing. So the whole new cinematic universe to Marvel is pushing the females. And you think about it, Star Wars, the exact same thing. I mean, what happened with Star Wars? I mean, you the original series, you had the traditional hero arc where you had a young coming of age boy, Luke Skywalker, who, works on a farm but dreams of living a bigger life, and then finds out, gets involved, and all of a sudden his aunt and uncle are killed, and he's forced to go on this epic journey. And then through the journey, the arc of the journey, he becomes this Jedi master, and you see the whole thing unfold over 3 films. Well, then you have the Mary Sue character, which is in the new Disney Marvel, right? Star Wars, right? Which again is people you're not allowed to talk about, but they take control of Star Wars. And now you have the Mary Sue. Do you know what a Mary Sue character is?
No, I don't actually.
So a Mary Sue just is a character that can instantly do anything. Basically, it's like a female character.
Good way to put it. Yeah, good way of putting it.
It's like they're instantly amazing at whatever they do. So
I couldn't stand that about Rey.
Yes, Rey. And so Rey defeats
the Sun Rey. Anyway, Sun worship Lucifer. Beginning
exactly Rey, right? Like the again bringing lightness from the darkness and their whole satanic new world order. But in the first film too, the rise of the feminist sort of thing, where she's battling Obi-Wan Kenobi, or not Obi-Wan, Han Solo's son there, right? Kylo Ren. And it's deeply symbolic because you have the red, which features the male, the 2 pillars of Freemasonry, the female, the blue, and the red is the male. So the male energy. And she strikes him down and cools his red lightsaber in the snow. And then she defeats him, and a chasm opens between them, like the divide. This is all deeply symbolic of the divide between the male and the female. This is what they're doing. They're showing, they're telegraphing everything that they're doing to us. So they're pushing now this new age feminist who cannot lose, the Supergirl, the Marvel, the She-Hulk, you know, like that she's adopted all the male characteristics, where at least you had Luke Skywalker who actually had to learn, and you saw him go through. I mean, that was a huge part of the whole trilogy, was that, you know, by the time he got to the third film, you are now, you know, Darth Vader has to admit that his son is now a true Jedi Master, right? He's finally reached that level. Well, the Mary Sue character has it right away. Like instantly she can fly the Millennium Falcon better than anybody else. Instantly she can wield a lightsaber and defeat like one of the top Sith lords or whatever, right? So this is all, again, the Spice Girls, the girl power, the heavy feminist programming that's going in, and everything's being changed, right? Where it used to be, that was the whole story, was like a man coming of age. Not that you can't have women coming of age, but this has all been flipped now, where it's the women that are always coming of age, the women that are always defeating, the women that are becoming the strength and the leaders and the conquerors. And this is in everything that they produce are pushing these themes. And they're the males, as you see, like you give an example, like the Guardians of the Galaxy, the Star-Lord character, he's just like, he's a goofball. Like, you know, he's a lovable goofball, but he's a goofball, right? He's full of ego, and, you know, and he's kind of stupid, and, you know, and it's the She-Hulk character that his lover, you know, / whatever, Flame and all that, who is much more capable, right? And it weaves its way into all of your programming, everything, even your commercials, like I showed with the Toronto Dominion Bank, everything the New World Order is putting out is all pushing the same agendas. And this feminist agenda is one of the biggest ones, because it really is the biggest divide and conquer. Nothing could be more. And that's why I mentioned that symbolic. If you go back and you watch the Feminist Awakens there, the first of the new trilogy of Star Wars films, that scene where she defeats Kylo Ren and the chasm opens between the blue and the red, this is deeply symbolic of the divide, the destruction of the monogamous, and Star Wars, again, the new Star Wars series is all about shedding family, right? What does Kylo Ren tell Rey in the second movie? Your family was nothing. Right, they were nobodies. They were, you know, and that was the whole mystery of where she came from. Well, now it's going to turn out that she's like some clone of a Palpatine or something like that, right?
Right.
But again, that comes into. I mean, it's an all-out assault. Like this is the challenge that all of us have, that we can very easily turn away from all their machinations. We can just shut off the Black Mirrors. We can just say, enough, I'm not going to watch any of their crap. I'm going to boycott it all. I'm going to keep my friends and family away from it all, keep my children, most importantly, away from it all, right? We can do that. It's possible to do that. But most people don't even get to that point. Most people can't really see that it's all controlled. And this is what I'm trying to illustrate, is that there's nothing that they don't control when it comes to your media, all your whether it's your local. I mean, they show you this too. Like, when, you know, all the clips where, you know, Economic Factor is going to take the spring out of the Easter Bunny, and they have hundreds of different local affiliates of Fox News and ABC News all reading the same script. Mm-hmm. They show you that on purpose, because they have to kind of show you that they control everything, because that, in my opinion, that's a way of saying, well, we showed you, we told you, right? And it's your fault that you don't. This is why, in many ways, in The Walking Dead, it's the Walking Dead, the masses are actually the sheeple, without a doubt. I mean, I hate to use that term, but the unthinking herd, the mass of people that would go to watch these Disney, Star Wars, Marvel, all these movies, and never think for a moment that they're being programmed. Never think, oh, you know, what are all the agendas that are being pushed, and why are they pushing this and that? They would just go and cheer and not realize this is, in many ways, this is a representation of the zombie, what they're doing to the masses. They're dumbing us all down. They're lowering the average IQ of every human being, or they're trying their best to do so. And this, again, plays into so many different levels, whether it's the entertainment, the foods, the beverages, all these things, the fluoride in the water, all these different things that they use to lower the basic IQ. And then they keep us occupied all the time with their bread and circus, their theatrics, their Donald Trump and their, whatever characters of the week and the big scandals that come out. These things are all manufactured.
Well, hey, man, Jeff, I got to tell you, man, I mean, we've been going over an hour and a half here. You still doing okay? I just wanted to check in.
Yeah,
you're in good.
Yeah, I'm good, man.
Good. And I wanted to see if, I mean, would you maybe want to take a few questions from just see if anybody has anything in chat for us?
Absolutely. I'd be thrilled. Yeah.
Let me jump over here, man. Yeah, this is all good stuff, man. I always, yeah, I mean, even The Walking Dead, you've got me thinking. Even you use the term sheeple, you got me just thinking about that because it's so funny. We're beyond that now. Isn't it weird that there was a period of time where we all used that term?
Yeah.
A lot of us did on YouTube, and there was more of a bigger so-called truth community on YouTube, right, obviously, and it's so broken apart and split up now. It's just
that was all orchestrated, by the way.
Sure. Yeah, sure. Hey, don't get me wrong. I have never, ever claimed to be a part of any truth community. And I've always been very careful of who I even deal with on here. You know what I mean? Like I trust you and some of the other people I've had on, I've always trusted them. And that's about it though. You know what I mean? But yeah, I've always been very suspicious of the whole thing. And, you and I go back through that quite a bit, even the whole flat earth stuff, we went through that pretty hardcore there for a while.
Yeah, all these operations that are unleashed. The truth movement is very troublesome for the New World Order because we're the only real people that are seeing beyond the box. They want everybody in the box, and they want everybody to not think outside their box. You're supposed to go with your gatekeepers, your Mark Schuldices, your Alex Jones, your all Jordan Peterson, all these characters that they place as gatekeepers to control the herd and all drive the herd in the same direction. Again, the hive mindset that they're trying to program humanity into is everywhere. So it can be a very toxic sort of thing. And that's why it's best, like you mentioned, never to identify yourself as part of some movement, just to do your own thing, right? And everyone should kind of take that approach to it because follow information. If you really like certain channels and they give you really good information, then by all means, that's what you should do. But don't form communities because those communities are so easily infiltrated by the agencies of the New World Order, all the spying agencies, NSA, GCHQ, the 8200, 77th Brigade, all these different that are all over the truth movement. They're all over the place. So it can be very toxic. And they like to use drama to divide and conquer. So it's always best to avoid all that. But yeah, you got any questions?
yeah, man. Hey, that's what we'll do is we'll hear in the chat, guys. If you have any questions, maybe just start off by saying the word question and then just kind of throw it out there. And I see one, it's not so much a question. This is towards me from Rich Taco. He says, you trash Alex Jones.
Yeah.
Which I don't know. Well, you're probably when you're talking about Jeff saying that. Okay. Well, hey, Alex Jones deserves to be trashed. I mean, there was some good. He's not. He's one of those complicated characters. He woke me up. His work did. I mean, it was responsible for a hardcore wake up for me. Mm-hmm. But then as time goes on, you realize how compromised he was and how he was used. Ultimately to come after people like us. I think in a lot of ways. But anyway, he says you trash Alex Jones, but you got on the God-hating witch lover higher side chats. And he's probably talking, that's to me, because I was on higher side chats. So it's just a troll thing. Also that, man, that's the deal is that's where I think a lot of these people act like they're religious Christian types, but they're just a-holes trying to hide like that. But even stuff like that, anybody who's truly down to earth and like I am, and realistic with their faith and their walk. It's not as so dogmatic and black and white like that. You want to talk to everyone, give everyone a chance. Love everybody, be cool with everybody. You know what I mean? Yeah. I learned. I talked about that character. I'm not sure if you like him. I don't know, but there's that character Sticks and Hammers 666. You probably heard of this kid.
Dick's Rectum Jammer.
I figured you probably had some stuff on him, but I was talking. I had stumbled on some of his work and I watched some and. Then I went and looked up his books, and this guy's, obviously fully a Luciferian, openly into the occult. But I was telling the people that's how I look at stuff is when you're listening to somebody and they make good points, I can separate that from the person. Yeah, the guy makes some really good points about things, saying things I agree with. things I've said to you guys just in a different way. It's like, oh, okay, I can get with that. I'm totally not with worshiping the devil in that respect, or worshiping Lucifer and blah blah blah. But but some people can't do that. You know what I mean? Like if you say, hey man, listen to this video, they're like, oh, you're suggesting the Satanist. You're trying to get me possessed. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure.
It's complicated for people, but the truth isn't always so black and white, right?
Yeah, I think like there's characters like, for instance, Jordan Peterson, who I fully believe is controlled opposition, but nonetheless, he does say a lot of good things that are valid and that could help people. So
I don't know much about him, but why do you think he's controlled?
Well, it's where he comes from and who he's connected to and what he pushes. It's like when he says, I'm going to stand up for freedom of speech here in Canada. So I'll give you an example. Bill C-16, which is the pronoun bill. Well, it's the transgender pronoun, multi-gender sort of bill in which it's illegal to use the wrong pronouns on people, and you can spend up to 2 years in prison in Canada for doing so. And really, it's an attack on freedom of speech. And Jordan Peterson says, I believe in freedom of speech. So it's one thing if there are people who question things like the Holocaust, and that's completely unacceptable. But when it comes to pronouns, we should have freedom of speech. So that's just an example. So then if you connect who Jordan Peterson came through and who promoted him and what organizations he worked for, you see who he is connected to. And then if you're confused, you can just look up Jordan Peterson Balfour Declaration, and then that'll kind of cinch it for you. Unless it doesn't mean, though, again, it doesn't mean that there isn't a lot of good information that might come from a source like that. It just means ultimately, in my opinion, that is
Sure.
a controlled opposition character who is placed, and they're strategically placed because they have to contain the reactions. They can't have hordes of people come to our channel, millions and millions of people, because then they're going to wake up to a lot more deeper things than just pronouns. So they have to put these characters and promote them and have them circulate all over the media so that they work as gatekeepers to contain the information and control the herd from leaving. And again, another great example is Blair White. So Blair White is a huge YouTuber who I've covered for quite some time, and is a transgender, right? But is the top transgender. So what is the top transgender critic on YouTube? Well, it's a transgender. So they've already got you. You understand, right?
Yeah.
Who is the top critic of the LGBT according to the media? Well, it's Milo Yiannopoulos, right?
Yeah.
And he is a homosexual, right? And small hat and all those things. So that's, in my opinion, that's how gatekeeping works. These characters play roles. And they can give you good information, though, and they can say things that are common sense and that you'll agree with. But ultimately, they're there to contain and keep the herd all moving in the same direction. So it's like if you go to Blair White, you are already accepting the transgender agenda. You're getting it from a so-called conservative sort of a perspective, but really it's just an established shill, in my opinion, who is working as a gatekeeper. And that's how they function. They're very, very, very clever, and they think these things out, and they establish these people in these positions. So it can be a very muddled mess, but that's why I say follow information, right? And then, you can like personalities and you can like content, but stick to information. Don't form communities, because the problem with communities within the truth movement is they'll always be infiltrated. And there's no area in the internet that receives more attention from the surveillance agencies than obviously the truth movement. And that is instantly provable through all the censorship and all the channels that have been taken down, like mine, dozens, right?
Yeah,
So,
I don't know if people actually get the gravity of it sometimes, how serious it is, and how amazing it is that our channels are even still around at one point, really. Because as I pointed out in the past, YouTube lost 70 billion. We know this. And little Susan, she kept her job. And she was even, not promoted, but she's, promoting this whole new YouTube TV, and they're bringing in celebrities. So she's making changes. And, everything's cool in her world. You know what I mean? And
It's like pocket change, though,
it's
for
pocket change.
Rothschilds and Soros and co.
But they admitted that was part of it. Was it happened because of them censoring so-called borderline content, and that's why so many of our channels are squashed now. I've been at 469,000 subs for like all of 2019.
And that's
I
crazy.
mean?
That is absolutely crazy, because it's like you have such a large audience because you've been, first of all, you've been putting out great content, but you've been around for so long, right?
Yeah.
Long time. And that just shows you, it shows everybody out there that we are all being completely marginalized and shuffled off into a corner, and none of us are getting like what we used to benefit from. Back in the day, like say when I had Free Radio Revolution back in 2014, right? Like where, you could put out a video exposing, say, a psyop or something, like a gun event or, Ebola or something like that. And you could get 500,000 views or even 1 million views before they might come and shut down the video. Because the algorithms and the artificial intelligence they employ to, the whole hero system, the tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of, people that they use to watch all these videos and censor them, wasn't in place at that point in time. When they brought in Susan Wojcicki, all of that changed, and they definitely, and we showed this way back, we showed over and over again how these global sort of agencies were all coming together, the GCHQ, the NSA, 8200, all these agencies were coming together and meeting up and talking about how they were going to dismantle these movements. And that's what they do. They create psyops, they put in the flat earth and stuff like that, and they get actors to come in and play roles and play characters, and then they start targeting channels that they feel are exposing too much information. So it makes it very, very, very difficult to navigate in these waters, and it forces people like myself and you, KJ, I'm sure to a certain extent, to be very careful about what you say.
Yeah.
Whereas, in the past, how I was way back with.
Oh yeah, it was great. You're bombastic.
Yeah, that was,
and we loved it.
Yeah, I loved it too, but and then I as I said at the beginning here when we started doing the show, I said, you know what,
you're right though, man. You're right.
I like like in a sense there is a silver lining to having to police yourself to a certain extent, and so like not swearing, for instance, which is now the way I function. Like I'm very acutely aware that I can't use profanity on this platform because it's just another example of them. And it's not even at all. I mean, PewDiePie and all these characters can swear like drunken sailors, right? It's
but he does Minecraft every freaking video. Isn't that funny? I mean, and he knows he has to, I guess, in a way. I don't know if he's doing it. He can do whatever he wants, or then again, can he? I don't know. He's been used in so many of these interesting situations. There's no telling. Yeah, but it's funny that the biggest YouTuber in the planet is always playing Minecraft, one of the dumbest, most childish games ever.
And you wonder, is it Minecraft or is it Mind?
Yeah, right. Seriously.
And again, I've never played Minecraft, but I would say all your games, for the most part, are much like your movies and your shows, and all part of creating the hive mind and programming the masses, and just taking you down to a lower frequency, and instilling mental illness in you and all these different things. So
let me go ahead and throw another one out here. I've seen a few have been passing by, guys. I'm sorry if the chat goes pretty quick, so I'm sorry if you asked something and it went by, but somebody's asked a few times. Maybe here it is, Vanessa Harris. What are your thoughts on the vaccine agenda? What do you think about it?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I'm extremely concerned about the vaccines. Done a lot of work over the years. I mentioned Ebola before as one of the major psyops that I covered way back in 2014, which was just a full-blown made-for-television movie, basically, and how vaccines have been part of a massive narrative. And it could, in some ways, they can be a bit of a red herring, because it's also like what I cover, for instance, with one of the people that I do shows with, Camille, is the foods and all the lab grown meats and everything, and the nanoparticles that they're putting into those things, and potentially a lot of what you could be ingesting could be what might be even causing things like the autism and so many other cancers and all that. But nonetheless, when you look into GlaxoSmithKline, when you look into some of these corporations and their history and some of the real information that has been released on vaccinations, studies that have been done in Italy that confirm kids getting autism and stuff like that from vaccines, it's very, very troubling. And then you see the corporate media itself, the Disney media, and how they use anti-vaxxers they're the pun of all the jokes these days, right? Anti-vaxxers, they mock you in their late night television shows. They bring in actors playing doctors saying, you people are dumb if you think vaccines are bad for you. And any doctor that would say that, and I've had this from doctors that I deal with, saying, like telling me, oh, you need to get a flu shot. And it's like, why? And they say, well, you should get one. Everyone gets one, sort of thing. And I said, no, it's okay. I haven't had the flu. I don't anticipate getting the flu. And even if I did, I'd keep myself in good shape. But they say, oh, patient knows best, sort of thing. And it's like, well, what do you know what's in the vaccines? Like, do you actually know? So was the doctor there when the vaccine's being made? Do they know what exactly is being put into these vaccines? And the answer is always no. They are just, it's a logical fallacy. It's an appeal to authority. It's saying, well, this comes from this source. And since I'm part of this sort of, I have I've been programmed into, having this appeal to authority. I'm going to assume that whatever's in these vaccines will not cause any harm to your babies or to anything. And again, with vaccines like measles, for instance, I mean, when I was a kid, you just put kids in a room and you wanted them to get measles so that they would, or the mumps, you'd want them to fight it off because it was all part of developing your immune system. In many ways, all the chemicals that they put in the products, which say they kill 99% of germs and stuff like that, germs aren't necessarily a bad thing. In fact, a lot of kids, it's all about developing your immune system. And this is, again, another attack on kids and their development. And you wonder why so many kids are becoming confused about their gender. Well, a lot of these toxins and chemicals are targeting their hormonal system. So this is, to me, it's a perfect storm that they're creating. So yeah, I'm extremely apprehensive of vaccines. Would that define me? Sorry, go ahead.
No, I just want to add, you were on a roll. I hate to cut you off. I was just going to throw in something. Have you heard about that story here in America, in Texas, about a 7-year-old boy? His mother has convinced him he's a little girl and dresses him up like a little girl, and the dad's, trying to fight against it. But now apparently they went to court and they've given the mother the right to have this boy chemically castrated, I believe, and actually make the transition.
Yep, that's insane, right?
Yeah.
And again, it's like this is up is down, black is white, inside is out. Everything's being reversed, and it's what are you doing to kids, right? I mean, what could you possibly do worse to a kid than to put that on them at such a young age? No kid should ever be put in that situation. Or like Bill C-16 here, or actually the Ontario sex ed curriculum, which is very infamous around the world for being one of the most hardcore NWO sort of sex ed curriculums, which comes basically directly out of the rectum of Alfred Kinsey, teaches 6-year-olds, like they're telling 6-year-olds, this is grade 1, I believe, is 6-year-olds, or it's kindergarten. When they're in class, they're saying, if you're a boy, you can be a girl, or maybe you want to be a girl, right? And you're throwing this at kids that are barely cognitive. Like they really, I mean, they really don't have any possible sort of wherewithal to be able to even process this, let alone, entertain the idea. And so that's, just another example of how they're trying to get kids as early as possible. Now, any kid that goes through the transition will never reproduce. That is a fact. You go on hormone blockers, that's it. It's done. Your reproductive is over with, right? So, and ultimately, that's my opinion, what it's all about. It's about, depopulation and eugenics, right, essentially, sort of thing. So, this is it's awful. It's unbelievable that you would do this to a kid. But look at the Desmond is amazing. You've covered this before, right? You've seen these characters, Lactatia, right? and where they come from and what they're promoting. And it's like, it's liberation. And it's like the best thing for an 8-year-old kid is to be dancing at strip clubs in downtown Montreal, or gay bars in downtown Montreal. I showed this way back like 4 years ago.
Here's the thing though, you know, because we do see this and we see it all the time. And I know we all point it out, but I wonder, I mean, what do you think about this? I mean, without me throwing in my 2 cents, but do you think we can win this? What do you see is coming in the next few years? Do you think we're going to start seeing more people stand up and take a stand and stop some of this stuff? Or do you think people are just going to, you know, keep falling away and not paying attention? What are your thoughts on that?
The only hope that we have of really stopping this from happening is just to reach as many people as possible and preach critical thought. In my belief, it's critical thought that eradicates the foundation of the New World Order. Because if you think critically about whatever the programming is, you're trying to get to the source of what it actually means, right? Rather than just take a surface approach to it and say, well, that tranny's crazy, or, you know, that politician is nuts for saying that. You know, that you have to get to the source. And then you get to the source, which of course all encompasses the one world sort of satanic New World Order, in which, you know, they want to radically change everything about humanity, and then it all makes sense. So, you know, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Sorry, man.
Yeah. So what I think is that I think in a way, what we had happening for a period was a pretty mass awakening. You know, you can go back, you can say 9/11 obviously had a huge impact on people. And you know, we go back to like 2013, 2014, when we were really having success and reaching a lot of people. Much more difficult now. And it might come down to word of mouth. It might come down to like passing around diskettes and stuff like that, you know, at cafes and shopping malls to try to reach people, because the censorship is becoming so suffocating that it may be not before long that all of our type of work is just cleaned off the slate. Sort of thing.
Sure. Did you ever hear of the short story Harrison Bergeron by Kurt Vonnegut?
Harrison Bergeron? I know Kurt Vonnegut. No, I don't think I know that one.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Kurt Vonnegut wrote Harrison Bergeron. Well, it takes place one of those dystopian future type things where everybody's dumbed down on purpose. Like they all have these rigs they have to wear on their heads that literally dumb them down. Everybody has to wear them, right? And Harrison is just an average kid that for some reason that stuff doesn't take on him. So it's not like he's a genius or anything. He's just an average kid, but you know, the system hates him because he's not normal, you know, and he's a little bit better than everybody else, and that hurts people's feelings. And so there's a sequence where there's a TV show, and it's just an example, one of the TV shows they watch in this. It's a guy that's running around dancing on a stage, but he's got a huge ball and chain around one of his ankles. So he's able to dance some, but he's not completely free. And as the people are watching the show one night, somehow he breaks free from the chain. And he just freaks out and starts just running around stage happy and, you know, spinning around. And of course, all the military people come in and tackle him and take him down. But so long story short, at the very end of the show, it takes place in the future, past this future. And there's 2 kids, and they're all talking about that sequence. And one of the kids pulls out this little weird, you know, computer looking disc thing, and he put it in and play it. And it's a little clip of that guy breaking free. And there's also some clips from Harrison Bergeron, you know, and things he put out there. But that's the way they shared information. I know that's a long story, probably just to explain a short, you know, point. But I just wanted to put that out there.
No, that's a great point and a great example of what it may take in the future. Because it's real what we're facing, and they are silencing us in every way, shape, and form. And you see it every day: channels being taken down, voices being silenced. It gets more and more difficult. And then you see how militant, for example, say look at the Extinction Rebellion, for instance, right? They're shutting down city cores. Right. So they're actually causing all kinds of chaos and traffic chaos. And, you know, you want to talk about carbon emissions. I mean, imagine all the cars that are being stalled and people that can't get to work on time, and just a disruption to the economy. And you have all these students, then they're very clever, because they've been for a couple generations now, they have been employing Agenda 21 programming in all the public education systems, right? So the new generations have all been grown up to be of the mindset of the Greta Thunbergs, right? That all the old generations have made this planet, brought it to the point where now we have this climate change that's going to destroy the planet, and so we're fighting the most noble fight of all. We're fighting against the extinction of the planet, and we will do anything and everything necessary to bring our messages. And this is all straight from the banksters. It's straight from the New World Order. They're using hordes of children who are programmed by their television, by their black mirrors, into this mindset. And then again, it's a divide and conquer as well, because it's pitting the youth against the older generations. And this is, as I said, every element, every level, they divide and conquer us and pit us against each other. And this is how they keep chaos, order out of chaos, right?
Yeah, totally. One thing that keeps me going sometimes, because, we've talked about this before, doing this kind of work as we've done for so many years, and you take so many hits and look, you've lost so many channels. I mean, and it can be kind of toxic, it's like, it's not necessarily easy, to keep going, sometimes. And it's definitely not, even like this, I did an ad today before the thing. I have a sponsor. I'm grateful for it, but I took a lot of backlash. A lot of people still don't like it. But for those who don't get it, guys, that's the new thing. YouTube doesn't like us, and it's not like it used to be. I was lucky, blessed, if you will, to make it for a long time and just live off making my videos, man. I didn't have to try, but that's all changed in the last few years.
Well,
you
could, put on women's clothing and makeup and all that.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Definitely.
That would probably, but that's
trim.
it. I mean, it's ludicrous. It's so essential that voices like yourself, like myself, and so many other good people listening have an opportunity to express.
Yeah,
I mean, that's why I say freedom of speech is being eradicated, all under the guise of ending hate, all under the guise of white privilege and all these different things that they're using, these weapons, right? Feminism, right? We need to ban, like I mentioned before, ban posse. You think that couldn't possibly be true. Well, yeah, it's not only true, but it's they put millions of dollars into producing videos and using A-list celebrities like Beyonce to push this message that we need to ban this word.
Oh, they're trying to get rid of manhole and mankind and all that. And I'm sorry, I was going to say the one point I was trying to make before, because I do kind of linger on sometimes, is just for us, like me and you and others out here who are doing our own kind of thing, trying to expose the system for what it is, to remember that we are dangerous to this system. And that's something to be proud of. That's something I always remind myself of, is, you get bad backlash, you lose people, you gain people, you have bad things happen, good things happen, but it's always a battle, man. But just remember that it's good to be in it. A lot of soldiers are gone. We've lost a lot of people in this battle and these battles in this war. So be glad you're still in it, and be proud to be an enemy of this system. It's
and you don't. Again, too, important thing to emphasize is, don't take a belligerent tone with the average person that's brainwashed. Right? Try. The teaspoon instead of the soup spoon or whatever, in terms of feeding them information. Everybody's different, but don't make the people that are brainwashed your enemies. They're not. They're just under mind control. And to a certain extent, all of us have been there at some point or time, right? So all of us are very susceptible to their control system. And every day it's a battle. It's just like we were talking about today when we're talking about movies and television shows that we watch. You have to fight, because you can't just turn off your brain and get into the programming mode, because then all of a sudden you're falling into their control. You have to constantly be at your guard. And it does keep you fit, though. It keeps you, like, it's just like exercise. Exercise involves resistance. It involves pushing yourself beyond what your comfort levels are. And it's the same with doing this type of work, where it's like, you're going to do this work, you're going to get censored, you're going to get hit, you're going to feel the heat, you're going to get chilled, because they don't want you to do this. They would much rather me and KJ made a show where, we're trying on makeup right now instead. Like if you and I were doing this and we were on camera and we were like, putting on all kinds of nail polish and lipstick and wearing dresses and stuff like that, then YouTube would be like, wow, this is great. is what they would want us to do. So
yeah, for sure.
when you go against the grain, it's a fight, right?
Let me throw this one at you too. I'm sorry again. I don't mean to just cut you off like that, Jeff. I just want to try to get, because some people keep asking the same questions. So I was like, all right, I'll try. But the few people keep asking this about the Noahide laws. Do you know anything about the Noahide laws?
Yeah, I know.
Why is that such a big thing online right now?
Yeah, well, it could be a number of things. It's difficult. It's not really like, okay, so Noahide laws, and they say things like the Gentiles or the Christians under Noahide laws could suffer from beheading and all this, false worship, and there's a lot of nasty things dealing with that. And the thing is that these things are being passed in the United States and certain states and countries around the world. And I think it's more symbolic, but it could eventually manifest into something real. And this is what's the big scare, is that at some point, yes, if the controllers have enough control, it's going to be difficult to go out and behead Christians right now, right, in a public square for being heathens or whatever they want to define it as. But it maybe in 2020 or 2030 or something like that, things might have changed so dramatically.
The spirit's already there, man. It's already there. I mean, like you said, we saw Beto O'Rourke coming out already talking about attacking the 501c churches right over the gay issue. Love is love.
That's an excellent sort of example of the whole. This would be a hell of a show too. Is the whole change of all the religions are being pushed into one religion, right? This is all a new world order worship, which is going to be a worship of nature and science, of course, right? A worship of man. It's an inverse again, right? Where they're going to radically change. And this is what they're pushing all the religions into. So, these are examples of how we are all being, changed radically. Everything is being changed, like everything. And if, people that might be skeptical, and it's good to be skeptical, it's good to be skeptical about everything, right, within reason. Just go and do a quick search for Agenda 2030, and then you see the whole document about transforming the world and everything that's going to change. So we all are being programmed, and we are all our free enterprise capitalist system is being dismantled. And in its place is going to be a communist style system. The social credit scores are already a reality in many ways. They've already manifested. What they show you on Black Mirror is predictive programming. It's what's already here. It's already germinated in many ways. So like the social credit scores, you already to a certain extent have that. It's like people being verified, for instance, on certain social media platforms. It gives you a certain priority over other human beings. These are the ways that these things are being weaved in. So we are like, you look at China and you look at the type of dictatorship, sort of communist dictatorship that they have, and the New World Order says that is wonderful. That would be perfect, right? Because then we have a strong centralized government that will censor and arrest and lock up anybody, any dissidents, anybody that goes against the state, right? And we've seen this manifest over and over again. This is, exactly what happened with the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia, right? You have the exact same sort of scenario playing out in a contemporary, world sort of thing. And it's extremely dangerous what we have going on. So, these things are, they're concerning. Sure, it's concerning. Anytime governments give precedence to certain groups, and this is what we have happening, this cultural Marxism, where, why is it okay to be racist, blatantly racist, against white people, to the point that, people in mainstream sort of New York and Hollywood come out and say, we need to kill white people, or white people need to stop breeding, right? White people are this and that. You get all these A-list celebrities saying these things. And it's like, well, if you said that about any other group, you'd probably be arrested, right? But how comes you're allowed to say that? Well, this is what they're doing. They're changing everything, right? So it's very, very concerning to see. And whenever it manifests in legislation, that's when it's really dangerous. So I say, like, the Bill C-16, the Equality Act, which is the equivalent of the Bill C-16 in the United States, is very dangerous because it's going to give extra rights. Like you have in Canada, for instance, transgender people have extra rights. They can make up their name, they can make up their gender, and they can change it as many times as they want. So they can have whatever name they want on their birth certificate. You can't have that. I can't have that, but they can. And you've done it all under the guise of equality, but it's the antithesis. It's the reverse. It's not equality. It's giving extra rights, extraordinary rights to minority groups. Like I show with the flag of Montreal, right, which was traditionally the Scottish, the Irish, the French, and the English, and now in the front and center. So you had 4 equal groups that made up the city of Montreal and built the city of Montreal. Now they put the Indigenous group dead center, twice as big as everyone else. This is the form of cultural Marxism that's being used to completely dismantle and rebuild society under their sort of communist dictatorship, which they're bringing in. It's very frightening what's happening. The gun control as well. I mean, the destruction of freedom of speech is all around you. You see it manifest every day, where people again can't say what they want to say, and you know, it's a very scary time.
Yeah, well, I'm still looking around to see if I can find any more questions. I don't know. Again, it goes so fast sometimes. You know what I mean? So
that's a good sign.
Yeah,
a lot of people
good. I got a great audience, man. It always is. And I don't know, man. I guess this might be a good time to go ahead and start wrapping it up. It's been almost 2.5 hours. I think it's been great, man.
Yeah.
You had a good time?
Oh, absolutely.
It's been great, man.
Yeah.
You're getting a good response here too. I mean, it's always nice just chatting with you about whatever, man. You know, I mean, we can go into any kind of subject. Is there anything you wanted to leave anybody with? Also, let them know how you can be found as well. I'll leave a link below to your channel.
Yeah. My main channel is Jeff Censored. But right now I had to switch over to Supreme Lord Commander because of being hit with a community guideline strike, and it gets dicey because you get one strike and then another 2 can come within an hour and then your channel's gone. So now my policy is when I get a strike on a channel, I just move operations to another channel so I don't lose that channel like I've lost so many before. So right now, Supreme Lord Commander, which, you know, if you're wondering about the name, it's just a joke kind of thing, and it's where I was always doing my sort of analysis of video games and movies and stuff like that, which is exposing all the New World Order elements that go into that. So yeah, you can catch me there. You can catch me on Steam at Fake News Report, and on Twitter at Free Radio Revolu. And yeah, that's I think that's, yeah. I have a Patreon too, which is New World Agenda. But yeah, I move around a lot, so I'm used to it. But
well,
yeah,
I promise I'll leave links to both of them below. And how much longer is your restriction on the main channel on the?
Well, the strikes are about 3 months, so probably for the next it's been about 2 weeks, so probably the next 2.5 months I'll be on Supreme. But you know what? There's a good thing to it. You know, it's like you can build up another channel,
right?
You know, right?
That's a good way to look at it.
Yeah. Although, you know, they can just come and pull the rug out. I mean, like sometimes when I lost channels in the past, it would happen so quickly. I remember with Free Radio Revolution, I fought and fought. They kept taking the channel down. I kept fighting, and I kept getting it back up, and then it would take it down, and then would get it back up, and then eventually they took it down, and I just gave up. Right? I was just so tired of fighting endlessly to try to.
I know. I felt for you, bud, back then. I remember those days. That's when they really came through hard, man. That was really rough.
Yeah, well, they still do. I mean, in many ways, it's even harder now, and there's so many channels that are going down. Like it's terrible.
Yeah,
I mean,
we're all affected.
Look, you know, whatever your channel might be, right? I mean, unless you are doing something that is really hurtful to people, right? Like I absolutely abhor any form of censorship unless it's you know, promoting pedophilia or something horrible, or doxing people or stalking people. Yeah, those are the types of things that should be censored. But in my opinion, you know, whatever your beliefs are, you want to believe aliens run the government, by all means, you should have a channel, and you should be allowed to reach as many people as you possibly can. I mean, let the people make their mind up on what they believe. But this is not the way that this New World Order functions. And Google is a highly restricted platform. It's the most popular website in the world. Both number 1 and 2 are Google and YouTube. So we are here in the realm of the most popular. And what you told me before about your channel not getting any subs all year
Isn't that crazy?
mind-boggling. It's just like,
They
what?
bleed them. Well, I showed. Do you remember Social Blade? You know what
Yeah.
that is, right? So they took Social Blade away. YouTube stopped the relationship with them because you could find your real statistics on Social Blade, and I kept sending messages to YouTube showing them where they took almost 330, not 300. Well, yeah, it was 23,000, and then almost another 10,000. So that's almost 30. Well, of course, 33,000. No, guys, that's not some kind of a hidden code. There literally was like 100 and almost 33,000 views just over 1 month, and they do that. I'd see 15,000 just for 25,000, different amounts here and there. And now they can hide that. But yeah, my channel, they've been doing to other channels as well. That's been deemed, borderline content. They said they would do
almost
this.
Everybody almost everybody that I know in the truth community is exactly the same. It's like nobody's growing.
You're not getting the views you
not
used
getting
to
the views
at all.
And it's terrible. It's because it's not about ego, and it's not about making all kinds of money or anything like that. It's about we're trying to reach people,
yes,
right?
yes.
If we want to counteract what's going on, we have to have an opportunity to be able to get that. It's interesting too. I don't know how much of it's theatrics, but the PragerU lawsuit against Google, because that deals with it. So what PragerU, and yes, it's Jewish and whatever, right? But the PragerU are suing Google, YouTube, Google, because many of their videos are being restricted and people can't find them in searches, and or you have to be over 18 to see their views. So they're not even a channel.
Wrong.
Yeah, they're not even a channel that is getting videos taken down, as far as I know, but they are having like dozens and dozens of videos restricted, and people have to sign in. They have to be over 18, and so they're actually suing Google. This could actually, let's hope, I'm hoping that, I'm not naive to who runs YouTube and what's going on, and this could all be part of their controlled theatrics, but possibly something good could come out of this if PragerU is legit in what they're trying to do to YouTube, because we can all, I think one of the biggest things that we could all stand together for, just like I mentioned before, is freedom of speech. And if we just make the guidelines of freedom of speech clear, right, where it's like, these are the rules, and these are the rules, and they're clear as day. Like they're this is what you can do, and this is what you can't do. So like I mentioned before, like when it comes to freedom of speech, for me, unless you're purposely trying to hurt people, unless you're purposely like doxing, targeting, stalking people, stuff like that, you should be allowed to have a channel on anything that you want, right? As long as it's not sexual or nudity and stuff like that. You fit within a certain guidelines. So freedom of speech for me is the right to say something that other people might find highly offensive, right? Because the alternative is totalitarianism. So as I say, I don't agree with a lot of, there's probably a lot of truther channels that I would have issue with some of the stuff that they're putting out, but I would never, ever want to see them being restricted or their content taken down. Even if I think they're shill channels that are putting out bad information, it's still fundamentally an issue of freedom of speech. And we could all stand together and say we need this freedom of speech, because this is the most essential freedom that we have. Once that is revoked, which it has been, then we are all living in the shadow of tyranny. We're all living in this new age where, well, this is allowed to be said, but this can. And like I mentioned before, it's like racism, right? Well, you can get shut down if you say something pro-white. If you put up a video and you say, I'm proud to be white, there's a great chance that you'll be censored. There's a great chance that they'll hit your channel for harassment and bullying. And it's like, well, what if you put up a channel and said, I'm proud to be black, or I'm proud to be Jewish, or I'm proud to be Chinese? They would never take that down, right? So it's not at all even what's going on. It's really, really nasty. And we all have to stand up against this and understand that freedom of speech. I mean, even if you're a shill and you're listening to this show, you have to realize at some point your family, your children are going to be directly affected by this tyranny if it's allowed to continue to manifest in the direction that it is. That if we say that, like, for instance, you're not allowed to talk about like the type of work that I was known for in Free Radio Revolution was analyzing, major sort of terrorist events to determine whether or not there's some staging going on and stuff like that. You're not allowed to do that anymore. You can't do that at all. You could put up a video and play the left-right game and say, well, we need more security or we need less guns or whatever, but you cannot come in. I'm telling everybody that's listening to this, you cannot come in and put up a video and say, I don't think that event happened, or I think maybe they staged it or something like that. They will not tolerate that at all. And so that's just another example of toxic censorship and totalitarianism and the destruction of freedom of speech that we all have to realize is eradicating what we stand for. So it's dangerous, and I think this is a huge issue. This is, to me, once it's completely gone, then we're basically in a brave new world, or we're in 1984, right? Where every day, we're threatened for whatever we might say. We got to cheer louder than the person next to us so we don't get singled out by,
Right. Well, they still do that.
Far.
They still do that in North Korea. You can see footage of the people there, and they're maniacally clapping and laughing, at all the right moments, especially when the cameras are on. It's really frightening.
Oh, yeah. And and again, too, I mean, like, that's why I'm in favor of the Hong Kong protests for the most part, because, it's people expressing their disgust with tyranny, right? Standing up to tyranny, standing up to the surveillance state, right? And you do have to take a stand, because everyone that's listening to this is the whole thing. We are all in this together. Like, all of us will suffer if we continue to allow their destruction of our rights to proceed. If we allow them to dismantle our constitutional rights, if we allow them to dismantle our right to bear arms, if our right to freedom of speech, then we will be in a Bolshevik style sort of state where people will just be taken out in the middle of the night and shot, right? Like, and you won't be able to say anything, and every day it'll get worse until the people stand up and topple, and a new government or a new era rises up. And that always leads, that's throughout history, it's always bloody, right? Whenever you lose those rights, to get them back, it's always civil war. It's always, and we should never we should be like, well, we never want that to happen. We want to prevent this from happening. I think in many ways, the New World Order is manufacturing civil war in the United States.
Sure. It's coming close. I mean, they're trying to do these closed door sessions, and all this stuff. I don't know. I don't like to get into the politics of it all, because I know a lot of it's theater as well, but yeah. Regardless, man, I guess that's a good note to leave it on. But man, as always, man, thank you so much. It's been great just chatting about what's going on. We'll do it again here real soon, man.
Absolutely, yeah.
There's always new subjects we can get into as well. We can just go forever and ever. But so, anything else you wanted to say before we say goodbye?
Oh, a huge thanks to you and everyone in the audience that took time to listen to this today. And I wish you, God bless everyone, and fight the good fight. And be the change. Be the change you want to see.
Yeah, that's it. And also, I almost forgot. I always like to leave with just a short prayer. I hope you don't mind. I'm going to throw one down here real quick. Heavenly Father, thanks again that we could have a fantastic show here and have our friend Jeff C on and just discuss the world at large, all the craziness we see out there. Thanks for this wonderful group of people who can join in here, and we can all look at these things through different sets of eyes, and hopefully pick apart the truth and share it with each other, and just keep battling this wicked system as we can. Lord, thank you so much to keep strengthening us, please, and keep guiding us all, and take away all that fear. And on that note, I love you, Lord, and in Jesus' name I pray, amen. Thanks, guys.
Amen.
I always thank you, man. I always like to try to keep it pretty short and sweet, but hey, and on that note, I'll just say, to the audience, guys, thanks so much. To the moderators, thank you so much. Big shout out to my Patreon and PayPal supporters. Also for the sponsors, guys. Again, I always say it. I'm kind of new at this, but it's really helping me to continue in the game. To continue being here. I'm lucky I still have a channel. I'm blessed that I still have a channel. So I'm going to do everything I can to continue. But please consider Patreon, PayPal support, and also checking out the sponsors. Once again, Jeff C., thanks so much, man, and audience. Love you guys. Take care until next time, okay?
Bye, everyone. Thanks so much.